In the heart of America's breadbasket, Omaha, Nebraska, Melanie Vandermeer, a 34-year-old bank employee, lived a life marked by ambition and familial love. A graduate of Creighton University, she had majored in finance, a field she navigated with precision and passion. As a mother to 3-month-old Addison and wife to Peter Vandermeer, Melanie's life was a tapestry of modern motherhood and career aspirations. Melanie's colleagues at the First National Bank of Omaha knew her as a diligent worker, often staying late to ensure her clients' needs were met. Her LinkedIn profile, a relatively new phenomenon in June of 2005, showcased endorsements for her financial acumen and dedication. At home, Melanie was the nucleus of her family, her relationship with her husband Peter appearing to be a testament to partnership and mutual support, at least on the surface. Her family, including her sister Emily and parents John and Diane, were fixtures in her life. They often gathered for Sunday dinners, a tradition that Melanie cherished. These intimate gatherings were a blend of old and new, where stories from the past mingled with discussions of the latest episode of Desperate Housewives, a show Melanie enjoyed for its portrayal of complex women. Melanie's dreams extended beyond the confines of her immediate world. She envisioned a future where her daughter would have opportunities she had worked hard to secure. Only days before her death, Melanie had excitedly spoken of plans to enroll Addison in the prestigious Brownell Talbot School, ensuring a head start for her education. As Melanie and Peter boarded their flight to Cancun, a couple's only trip to celebrate their second marriage anniversary, her thoughts were a mix of anticipation for the sandy beaches she'd seen in Travel and Leisure magazine and a well-deserved break from the rigors of new parenthood. Little did she know that this journey to paradise would be her last. On June 15, 2005, as the early morning sun cast a golden hue over the white sands of Cancun, a grim discovery disrupted the serene ambience of this tropical haven. At approximately 6:30 a.m., with the resort town slowly stirring to life, Maria Hernandez, an 82-year-old local known for her daily beachcombing rituals, stumbled upon a scene that would haunt the peaceful shores and make headlines far beyond the Yucatan Peninsula. The body of Melanie Vandermeer, still clad in a J.Crew bikini, a popular brand featured in the summer catalogs of that year, was found lifeless, embraced by the gentle yet relentless waves of the Gulf of Mexico. Maria, who had lived through the transformation of Cancun from a sleepy fishing village to a bustling tourist hotspot, was no stranger to the occasional aftermath of nighttime revelries left on the beach. However, the sight of Melanie's body was an inconceivable departure from the norm. The local authorities were notified promptly, thanks to a nearby tourist who lent Maria his Nokia cell phone, a device that had become a staple in the connectivity of the era. The police arrived on the scene with a sense of urgency, a response time reflecting the gravity of the situation and the potential impact on Cancun's image as a safe and exotic getaway, frequently featured in the pages of Condé Nast Traveler. The weather, typically idyllic for this time of year, seemed to mourn with a somber sky and a gentle breeze that offered no solace to the first responders. The beach, usually adorned with sun loungers and vibrant umbrellas, was now cordoned off with yellow tape, standing in stark contrast to the picturesque setting that had drawn Melanie and countless others to its shores. Maria, with decades of life etched into her weathered face, displayed a stoic calmness that belied the shock of her discovery. Her statement to the police was clear and concise, providing the initial narrative to what would become a complex and heart-wrenching investigation into the untimely death of a young mother and wife. The arrival of the Quintana Roo police at the now secluded section of Cancun's coastline was swift, a testament to the Mexican authorities' commitment to maintaining the resort's image, as depicted in glossy brochures, a sun-soaked retreat from the daily grind. Detectives Alejandro Ruiz and Sofia Blanco, seasoned officers with years of experience between them, were met with a scene that juxtaposed the natural beauty of the locale with a chilling narrative. The date was June 15, 2005, a time when the world's eyes were often fixed on the developments of the Iraq War, broadcasted by CNN and other 24-hour news channels. Yet here, the only conflict was between the tranquility of the resort town and the violence suggested by the discovery at its shore. The weather, a balmy 82 degrees with a light breeze, seemed incongruous with the gravity of the crime scene. Detective Ruiz, with his stern demeanor and sharp eye for detail, noted the absence of struggle. The sand around Melanie's body was undisturbed, save for the impressions left by Maria Hernandez's early morning discovery. Detective Blanco, known for her empathy and keen intuition, observed the victim's peaceful expression, a stark contrast to the brutality of her demise. The crime scene was devoid of the expected chaos that accompanies violence. There was no blood, no signs of a conventional struggle. The detectives surmised that Melanie had been drowned, a hypothesis that would later be confirmed by the medical examiner. The Gulf waters had cleansed any immediate evidence, leaving the investigators to rely on forensic methods that were becoming increasingly sophisticated, even as shows like CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, popularized them to the public. The police meticulously documented the scene, utilizing digital cameras, a relatively new addition to their investigative toolkit, to capture the area in detail. They collected samples of sand and water near the body, hoping that the burgeoning field of forensic science might yield microscopic clues. The absence of Melanie's personal effects suggested a robbery or an attempt to conceal her identity, complicating the case further. As the sun climbed higher, casting a harsh light on the grim task at hand, the detectives knew that the answers they sought might be as elusive as the motives behind this tragic end to a vacation that promised relaxation and renewal. As the investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's untimely death unfolded, the focus turned to her husband, Peter Vandermeer, a 35-year-old financial advisor. Amidst the swaying palms and sun-soaked beaches of Cancun, a stark contrast to the couple's quiet life in Omaha, Nebraska, Peter found himself at the center of a murder inquiry. With a reputation for ambition and a seemingly unwavering commitment to his family, Peter's life was under intense scrutiny. Peter's communications were being combed through by local authorities. Detectives sifted through call logs and messages, searching for inconsistencies in his account of their vacation, which coincided with the 2005 MTV Movie Awards buzz, an event Melanie had been excited to discuss during their trip. During the interrogation, held within the stark walls of the Cancun Police Department, Peter's composure was as fluctuating as the stock market he navigated for a living. He spoke of their plans to visit the renowned Chichen Itza ruins and how they had dined at the Hard Rock Cafe Cancun just the night before Melanie's disappearance. Yet, when pressed about rumors of marital strife, his demeanor shifted. His hands, which had calmly folded a napkin from the cafe into neat squares on the table, now clenched into fists. The detectives noted Peter's agitation when they inquired about the couple's financial situation, which was reportedly strained due to his recent investment in the real estate boom, considered precarious by some after the 2005 housing market predictions. Peter vehemently denied any discord, attributing any perceived tension to the normal stress of parenting a new baby and Melanie's ambition to ascend the corporate ladder at her bank. However, the police had uncovered evidence of several heated exchanges between Peter and Melanie, captured by the hotel's security cameras. These exchanges painted a picture of a relationship fraying at the edges, despite the idyllic setting. The investigation was further complicated by the discovery of a substantial life insurance policy taken out on Melanie, with Peter as the sole beneficiary, a common trope in true crime tales that raised eyebrows among the investigators. As the interrogation stretched into the evening, the detectives were aware that the burden of proof lay heavy on their shoulders. Cancun, a city pulsating with the rhythm of nightlife and the whispers of Caribbean winds, was now the backdrop of a narrative that had shifted from romantic getaway to sinister plot. The investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's death took a dramatic turn with the questioning of Tommy Walker, a 23-year-old Australian backpacker whose nomadic lifestyle had led him to the white sands of Cancun. His rugged charm and the allure of adventure had captivated Melanie, resulting in a clandestine affair that now placed him in the crosshairs of a murder investigation. Tommy's arrival in Cancun had been part of a broader itinerary that included the world's most exotic locales, a journey he meticulously documented on his blog, a popular medium in the burgeoning age of social media. His digital footprint, including check-ins at Cancun's Coco Bongo Club the night of June 14th, provided the police with a timeline of his movements. The interrogation took place against the backdrop of a series of benefit concerts aimed at combating global poverty, mirroring the stark contrast between Tommy's free-spirited existence and the gravity of the situation at hand. His defense was as unwavering as the global resolve to make poverty history. Detectives probed Tommy about his relationship with Melanie, questioning whether jealousy might have driven him to an act of violence. The Australian, sporting a billabong tank top and a sunburnt demeanor, maintained his innocence. He recounted their last meeting, insisting it was nothing more than a farewell before he continued his travels to the next destination on his list, which included the recently opened Disneyland Hong Kong. Despite his assertions of innocence, the police were skeptical. The affair had been a poorly kept secret, whispers of which had even reached the ears of the staff at the Moon Palace resort where the Vandermeers were staying. Tommy's passport and belongings were seized, revealing a postcard addressed to Melanie, the message on the back unfinished and a tone, one of longing. As the interrogation concluded, Tommy's fate hung in the balance, much like the Space Shuttle Discovery, which was grounded due to fuel sensor issues, delaying its much-anticipated return to flight. The investigators were left to ponder whether Tommy Walker's desire for freedom had been eclipsed by a darker impulse. On June 17th, as Cancun's tourist throngs reveled in the summer heat, a breakthrough emerged in the Vandermeer case. A local vendor, sifting through the sands to set up his beachside souvenir stand, unearthed Melanie's missing purse. The discovery, mere meters from the Moon Palace resort, reignited the investigation with newfound urgency. The sandy handbag, a Coach leather tote, a recent anniversary gift from Peter, contained more than the usual vacationer's essentials. Among the items were Melanie's hotel key card, a half-empty bottle of Banana Boat sunscreen, and a torn piece of paper that bore an enigmatic message written in what appeared to be Melanie's own hand. The cryptic note, partially smeared by sunscreen, seemed to be an unfinished sentence or a hastily scribbled thought. It read, "Meet me where the sun whispers goodbye," a phrase that detectives speculated could point to a clandestine meeting on the beach, perhaps with her lover, Tommy, or another unknown individual. The contents of the purse were meticulously cataloged and analyzed. Forensic technicians dusted for fingerprints, while digital specialists attempted to extract any latent data from the keycard, which might shed light on her final movements, a technique growing in sophistication. The case had all the hallmarks of a sensational story, a picturesque setting, a young mother's tragic end, and a narrative rife with potential jealousy and betrayal. As the summer sun set on another day in paradise, the investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's death had taken a significant turn. The authorities hoped the purse would be a game-changer in uncovering the truth behind the tragedy. The serene shores of Cancun, usually a refuge for sunseekers, became the backdrop for a complex investigation as attention shifted to Maria Hernandez, the 82-year-old local who first stumbled upon Melanie Vandermeer's body. Maria, a fixture on the beach, supported her family through what tourists left behind, her life story a stark contrast to the carefree vacationers surrounding her. Detectives delved into Maria's background, uncovering a life marked by resilience and hardship. Her daily routine, as unchanging as the tides, involved combing the beach each morning, a practice she had maintained for decades. This consistency, coupled with her discovery of the body, prompted authorities to consider her a person of interest. During her questioning, which took place in a room that felt as cold and clinical as the air-conditioned lobbies of the nearby luxury resorts, Maria maintained a stoic composure. Her account was detailed and precise, reminiscent of the factual reporting style seen in the pages of National Geographic, which featured an article on the resilience of the elderly. Investigators probed for a motive, speculating on a theft gone wrong. However, Maria's history was devoid of any criminal entanglements. Much like the pristine beaches she walked were free of the seaweed that often washed ashore elsewhere. Her hands, weathered from years of labor, showed no signs of a struggle, and her alibi for the time of Melanie's disappearance was corroborated by other locals. As the interrogation unfolded, Maria, despite the investigators' initial suspicions, emerged more as a witness than a perpetrator. The detectives concluded their session with Maria, her account leaving them with more questions than answers. The pursuit of justice for Melanie Vandermeer continued, the case unfolding like the plot of a John Grisham novel, each chapter revealing new complexities. The investigation into Melanie Vandermeer's death culminated in a revelation that would shock the tranquil community of Cancun. The evidence meticulously gathered and analyzed by local law enforcement pointed to one individual, Peter Vandermeer, the victim's husband. The man who had presented himself as a grieving spouse was unmasked as the architect of a premeditated murder. Peter's facade began to crumble as detectives pieced together a timeline that contradicted his initial statements. Hotel surveillance footage, time-stamped and unambiguous in its storytelling, showed Peter's movements on the night of Melanie's disappearance. The footage, as revealing as the exposés featured in Time magazine, contradicted his alibi. Further incriminating evidence emerged from the couple's electronic devices. Emails retrieved from Melanie's BlackBerry, a device that had become synonymous with business communications, revealed a marriage fraught with tension and conflict. Peter's own laptop, a sleek Dell Inspiron which had been advertised as the perfect tool for the on-the-go professional, contained deleted files that were recovered by forensic experts. These files included internet searches for life insurance payouts and the effects of saltwater drowning. The case against Peter Vandermeer was becoming as clear as the high-definition images broadcasted by a newly launched HD channel. The motive was a tapestry of betrayal, humiliation, and financial gain. Peter had learned of Melanie's affair through a message on her Nokia phone, a model praised for its reliability, and the revelation had ignited a murderous plan fueled by jealousy and rage. In the days leading up to the murder, Peter had been seen purchasing a large life insurance policy on Melanie, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. This policy, coupled with the couple's recent enrollment in an American Express travel insurance plan, painted a grim picture of premeditation. As the local community absorbed the news, the idyllic image of Cancun was temporarily overshadowed by a narrative of domestic tragedy. The case against Peter Vandermeer was airtight, his arrest imminent, and the facade of the perfect family holiday was shattered forever. As the tropical storm clouds gathered over Cancun's horizon on June 20th, a different tempest was unfolding within the confines of the local police station. Peter Vandermeer, once the bereaved husband, was apprehended by authorities in connection with the murder of his wife, Melanie Vandermeer. The arrest marked a somber resolution to a case that had gripped the seaside city. The evidence against Peter had mounted steadily, with the meticulous work of the Cancun detectives mirroring the precision of a Swiss watch, a symbol of the same luxury Peter aspired to provide for his family. The detectives had constructed a detailed timeline of Melanie's final hours, corroborated by hotel surveillance footage and witness testimonies, which now pointed irrefutably to Peter's involvement. His apprehension occurred discreetly, away from the prying lenses of tourists' digital cameras, which were becoming increasingly prevalent. Much like the Canon EOS 350D that had been released earlier that year, Peter's demeanor during the arrest was one of disbelief. He appeared as disoriented as someone waking from a dream, his reality irrevocably altered. The news of Peter's arrest spread quickly, traveling through the channels of local media with fervor. The case had all the elements of a primetime drama, and public interest was piqued. Melanie's family, who had flown in from Nebraska, a state known for its rolling plains rather than sandy beaches, was present at the station. The mix of emotions was palpable: relief at the progress of the investigation, intertwined with the profound grief of loss. The Vandermeer family had been regular attendees at the Heartland Church back home, seeking solace in their faith, which was now tested in the most tragic of circumstances. As Peter was escorted to a holding cell, the storm outside unleashed its fury on Cancun. The sound of rain on the police station roof provided a grim soundtrack to the unfolding events. The arrest marked the beginning of a new chapter in the case, one that would lead to the judicial system where evidence would be weighed and a verdict rendered. The trial of Peter Vandermeer, set against the backdrop of a Cancun summer, commenced with the weight of expectation. The evidence laid out before the court was as compelling as the latest investigative series gracing the cover of Rolling Stone. Hotel surveillance footage, email correspondences, and the damning life insurance policy painted a portrait of a man driven to the brink by infidelity and financial desire. Defense attorney Miguel Torres, known for his advocacy as robust as the defense strategies outlined in John Grisham's legal thrillers, pleaded for leniency. He highlighted Peter's lack of criminal history and his role as a father, drawing a parallel to the public's sympathy for Martha Stewart, who had recently returned to the limelight after her own legal battles. The courtroom, with its charged atmosphere, could have been the set of a courtroom drama series, a stark contrast to the usual tranquility of the seaside town. Melanie's family, a constant presence in the gallery, clung to each other, their emotions as turbulent as the stormy season that had just passed. When the verdict was announced, the word guilty resonated through the room, definitive and irrevocable. The sentencing that followed was severe, as if to match the gravity of Peter's actions. The judge cited the premeditated nature of the crime, delivering a sentence that ensured Peter would spend the majority of his remaining years behind bars. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was reminiscent of the buzz surrounding the Live 8 concerts, which had taken place that same summer. Opinions on the verdict were divided. Some felt justice had been served, while others debated the complexities of the human heart and the concept of retribution. As the Vandermeer case closed, the family left the courthouse to begin the arduous process of healing. The foundation established in Melanie's name promised to keep her memory alive, a testament to the enduring spirit of a life taken too soon. In the wake of the trial that captivated Cancun, life gradually resumed its rhythm. Maria Hernandez, the elderly beachcomber who had discovered Melanie Vandermeer's body, returned to her daily search for treasures along the shore. The brief brush with the law had left an imprint on her, yet it became just another story in her long life, much like the tale she shared with her grandchildren. Tommy Walker, the Australian backpacker whose affair with Melanie had entangled him in the investigation, continued his global journey. However, the carefree spirit he once embodied seemed dimmed. The beaches of Cancun were replaced by new horizons, but his travel blog, now with a more reflective tone, occasionally hinted at the shadows of the past. The detectives who had worked tirelessly on the case, Alejandro Ruiz and Sofia Blanco, received commendations for their dedication. Their success in solving the case was discussed in law enforcement circles with the same respect as the latest advancements in forensic technology featured in journals like Forensic Magazine. Melanie's family, back in Omaha, sought to honor her memory through activism. The foundation they established focused on supporting victims of domestic violence, a mission that provided a channel for their grief and a legacy for Melanie. The foundation's work garnered attention, much like the social justice causes championed by celebrities at the Live 8 concerts that summer. The Vandermeer case had become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the facade of marital bliss. It served as a narrative that echoed the complexities of human relationships explored in popular shows like Desperate Housewives, which dominated television screens at the time. As Cancun's palm trees swayed in the gentle breeze and the turquoise waters of the Gulf of Mexico continued to lap at the sandy beaches, the tragedy of Melanie Vandermeer remained a poignant chapter in the city's history, a story of paradise lost to the destructive forces of jealousy and revenge. The tragic case of Melanie Vandermeer reminds us that paradise can sometimes mask the darkest of human emotions. As we close this chapter of True Crime Case Files, we are left to ponder the fragility of life and the lengths to which a broken heart will go to seek retribution. In November of 2003, the city of Miami was captivated by the shocking death of James Dupixent, a wealthy and influential figure in the local high society. At 65 years old, James had amassed a fortune as a real estate mogul, known for his cutthroat business tactics that had earned him a place at the top of Miami's elite. However, behind James' polished exterior, there lurked a dark secret that would ultimately play a significant role in his demise. Unbeknownst to many, James had a string of young male lovers, a fact that added an element of intrigue to the already complex narrative surrounding his life and death. Described as charismatic and ambitious, James possessed an air of confidence and authority that commanded attention wherever he went. He was a familiar face at the Florida Marlins games, passionately cheering on his beloved team. His dreams extended beyond his business empire. He yearned for genuine companionship, a longing that seemed to elude him even in the midst of his success. As news of James' death spread through the city, speculations would run rampant. The media buzzed with theories, each more sensational than the last. Some pointed fingers at his boyfriend, a young man whose identity remained shrouded in mystery. Others suspected his estranged son, with whom James had a strained relationship. Yet, amidst the swirling rumors and conjecture, one question remained. Who was responsible for the demise of this enigmatic millionaire? On a sunny afternoon in November 2003, the vibrant city of Miami was rocked by a shocking and tragic incident that would forever change the lives of those involved. James Dupixent, a prominent figure in Miami's high society, met a gruesome fate that would leave the community in a state of disbelief. It was a seemingly ordinary day when the tranquility of South Beach was shattered by the sound of a loud thud. Sarah Leon de Rosario, a renowned actress in the world of telenovelas, was enjoying the warmth of the Florida sun by her pool when she heard the disturbing noise. Curiosity and concern compelled her to investigate the source of the commotion. Rushing to the scene, Sarah's heart sank as she laid eyes upon the lifeless body of James Dupixent. The once charismatic and influential millionaire now lay motionless on the ground, his life extinguished in an instant. The shock of the sight was palpable, and the gravity of the situation began to dawn on those present. News of the tragedy spread like wildfire throughout Miami, capturing the attention of the media and the public alike. The incident took place in the midst of a vibrant and bustling city, where the streets were adorned with palm trees and the air was thick with anticipation for the upcoming Art Basel Miami Beach. The city, known for its glamorous nightlife and luxurious lifestyle, was now gripped by a dark cloud of uncertainty. As investigators arrived at the scene, the South Beach penthouse was meticulously combed for clues. The balcony, once a symbol of opulence and breathtaking views, now held the key to unraveling the mystery behind James Dupixent's untimely demise. The authorities, armed with their expertise and determination, sought to piece together the puzzle that lay before them. As the investigation unfolded, the lives of those connected to James Dupixent were scrutinized. His estranged son, his boyfriend, and others close to him would become subjects of interest for law enforcement. The web of relationships and secrets that surrounded the millionaire began to unravel, revealing a complex tapestry of motives and potential suspects. On that fateful November afternoon in 2003, the tranquility of Miami's South Beach was shattered by the chilling discovery of James Dupixent's lifeless body. The police, led by the seasoned detectives Emily Proctor and Mark Slavery, swiftly arrived at the scene to unravel the mystery behind this heinous crime. The sun cast long shadows as the investigators stepped into the opulent penthouse, its luxurious furnishings now overshadowed by the grim reality of a violent death. The room was stained with blood, a stark reminder of the brutality that had unfolded. The detectives meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene, their eyes trained to spot the tiniest shred of evidence that could lead them to the perpetrator. As they meticulously collected DNA samples and fingerprints, the detectives couldn't help but wonder who would want to harm James Dupixent. The charismatic millionaire had enjoyed a life of opulence and success, but beneath the surface, there were secrets that could prove to be the key to this puzzling case. James's extravagant lifestyle had made him a prominent figure in Miami's high society, rubbing shoulders with celebrities like Britney Spears and Gloria Estefan at exclusive events and parties. His connections ran deep, and the detectives knew they had to tread carefully, as the killer could be lurking within these very circles. The investigation took the detectives down a twisted path, filled with interviews, alibis, and a web of complex relationships. As the days turned into weeks, the detectives tirelessly pursued every lead, leaving no stone unturned. The media frenzy surrounding the case grew, with newspapers and television stations speculating on the identity of the killer. Rumors swirled, implicating James's estranged son, a jealous ex-lover, and even a disgruntled business associate. But amidst the chaos, Detectives Proctor and Slavery remained focused. They knew that the truth lay hidden in the intricacies of James's life, waiting to be unearthed. They meticulously analyzed phone records, financial transactions, and surveillance footage, determined to bring justice to the victim and closure to his grieving loved ones. As the investigation continued, the city of Miami held its breath, anxiously awaiting the resolution of this perplexing case. The detectives were determined to crack the code, to find the missing piece that would reveal the identity of the killer and expose the dark underbelly of Miami's high society. The investigation into the mysterious death of millionaire James Dupixent took a dramatic turn when the police turned their attention to Will Cooley, James's latest young boyfriend. At just 25 years old, Will was an aspiring artist known for his free-spirited nature and his passion for Latin American modernism. He had found himself captivated by James's charm and had eagerly embraced the opulent lifestyle that came with dating a wealthy businessman. As the detectives interrogated Will, they probed for any signs of jealousy or anger that might have driven him to commit such a heinous crime. Will, however, remained calm and composed throughout the questioning, vehemently denying any involvement in James's untimely demise. His alibi was supported by several witnesses who confirmed that he was at an art gallery event showcasing his latest collection at the time of the incident. The police, determined to leave no stone unturned, delved deeper into Will's background. They discovered that he had a clean record and no history of violence. Friends and acquaintances attested to his gentle nature and his unwavering dedication to his art. Will's innocence seemed increasingly likely as the investigation progressed. Nevertheless, the detectives couldn't ignore the fact that Will had been present in the penthouse at the time of James's death. They carefully examined the forensic evidence collected from the crime scene, hoping to find a breakthrough. Fingerprints and DNA samples were analyzed, but none matched Will's. As the investigation continued, the media frenzy surrounding the case intensified. News outlets across Miami were abuzz with speculation, and armchair detectives debated the possible motives behind James's murder. Theories ranged from a jealous lover seeking revenge to a business rival trying to eliminate a powerful competitor. The detectives, faced with mounting pressure, widened their scope of investigation. They began looking into other individuals who might have had a motive to harm James. Was it his estranged son, seeking revenge for a lifetime of neglect? Or perhaps a disgruntled business partner, desperate to gain control of James's vast empire? Nicholas Dupixent, a 28-year-old finance professional, found himself entangled in a web of suspicion following the tragic demise of his estranged father, James Dupixent. November 2003 would forever be etched in the annals of Miami's history as a month marred by a high-profile death that sent shockwaves through the city's elite circles. Born into a life of privilege, Nicholas had always strived to carve out his own path, away from the shadow of his father's opulent empire. A graduate of Miami's prestigious Coral Gables High School, he had honed his intellect and ambition to excel in the cutthroat world of finance. His relentless pursuit of success had led him to Wall Street, where he had become a rising star in the world of investment banking. However, beneath the veneer of accomplishment, a deep-seated resentment festered within Nicholas. The bitter divorce between his parents, fueled by his father's infidelity with a series of young male lovers, had left an indelible mark on his psyche. The wounds of betrayal still fresh, Nicholas had distanced himself from his father, vowing never to let him back into his life. As news of James Dupixent's tragic demise reverberated through the media, Nicholas found himself thrust into the spotlight. Journalists swarmed around him, hungry for any tidbits of information that could shed light on the enigma surrounding his father's death. Television cameras captured his every move, amplifying the pressure he felt to defend his innocence against the backdrop of a grieving city. The police, armed with their relentless pursuit of justice, turned their attention to Nicholas as a potential suspect. Detectives Emily Proctor and Mark Slavery, renowned for their meticulous approach to crime-solving, delved into the intricate details of his life. They probed his motives, searching for any signs of anger or resentment that might have driven him to commit such a heinous act. Nicholas's anger towards his father was undeniable. The scars of his father's betrayal ran deep, leaving a trail of emotional turmoil in their wake. However, as the detectives dug deeper, they began to unravel a complex tapestry of emotions. While his anger was palpable, there was no concrete evidence linking him to the crime. In the days that followed the tragic death of James Dupixent, the investigation took an unexpected turn. A tip from an anonymous source led the police to a hidden compartment in James's opulent South Beach penthouse. Inside this secret hiding spot, a treasure trove of scandalous materials was discovered, shedding light on the millionaire's secret life. The compartment contained a collection of sexually explicit letters and pornographic photographs, meticulously organized and hidden away from prying eyes. These materials provided a glimpse into James's hidden desires and the extent of his involvement with his young male lovers. The letters, written with an air of passion and secrecy, detailed intimate encounters and rendezvous that took place in luxurious hotel suites and exclusive nightclubs. As the police sifted through the evidence, they discovered a pattern. The letters were addressed to James from various young men, some of whom were familiar faces in Miami's social scene. The photographs captured intimate moments, frozen in time, showcasing the allure and magnetism that James possessed. It was evident that he had carefully curated this collection, a testament to his insatiable appetite for sex and the lengths he went to keep his secret life hidden. The investigation took an even more intriguing turn when the police identified some of the individuals featured in the photographs. These young men were not just random acquaintances. They were rising stars in the world of entertainment and fashion. Their faces adorned magazine covers, billboards, and television screens, captivating the public's attention with their beauty and charisma. Rumors began to circulate, fueled by the discovery of this scandalous collection. The media, always hungry for sensational stories, seized upon the opportunity to delve into James's secret life. Tabloid headlines screamed with scandalous details, speculating about the identities of the men involved and the extent of their relationship with the millionaire. As the investigation continued, the police interviewed the individuals featured in the photographs, hoping to unravel the web of deception surrounding James's death. Each interview revealed a different side of the story, as these young men struggled to reconcile their public personas with their private sexual encounters with James. The third suspect in the investigation into the death of millionaire James Dupixent was Brodie Leach-Hallister, a native of Brisbane, Australia, who served as James's personal assistant. Brodie, known for his efficiency and unwavering dedication, had recently become the subject of rumors within James's social circle. Speculation swirled that Brodie had become James's new lover, causing jealousy and potentially providing a motive for murder. During the police interrogation, Brodie maintained a professional demeanor, answering questions with precision and clarity. However, beneath his composed exterior, there seemed to be a hidden desire for a life of luxury and excitement. Brodie's background investigation revealed that he had grown up in a wealthy neighborhood in Brisbane, far from the glamorous world of Miami's high society. After completing his degree at the University of Queensland, Brodie decided to pursue his dreams in the United States, landing a job as a personal assistant to a wealthy businessman in New York City. It was during his time in the Big Apple that he first heard about James Dupixent, a prominent figure in the real estate industry. Driven by ambition and a desire for a better life, Brodie made the bold decision to relocate to Miami and seek employment with James. He saw this opportunity as a stepping stone to a more glamorous and exciting existence. Little did he know that his path would intersect with James's mysterious death. Brodie's relationship with James was characterized by professionalism and efficiency. He managed James's schedule, organized his appointments, and ensured that his business affairs ran smoothly. However, whispers among James's inner circle suggested that their professional relationship had evolved into something more intimate. As the investigation delved deeper into Brodie's personal life, it was discovered that he had a penchant for luxury brands and a taste for the finer things in life. It seemed that Brodie had become enamored with the glamorous lifestyle that James embodied. The police meticulously examined Brodie's financial records, looking for any evidence of financial gain or unusual transactions that could link him to the crime. They also interviewed friends and acquaintances from Brodie's past, hoping to uncover any hidden motives or connections to the case. The shocking truth behind the murder of James Dupixent, the Miami millionaire, was finally revealed. After an extensive investigation, it came to light that the killer was none other than Will Cooley, James's boyfriend. But what makes this revelation even more astonishing is the fact that Will was also James's secret son, a fact that was unknown to everyone involved. The story begins in 1977, when James had a brief affair with the famous Brazilian painter Diana Brices Cooley. Little did he know that this affair would result in the birth of Will, a secret that was kept hidden to James until his death. It was this horrifying revelation of his true paternity that drove Will to commit the tragic act of killing his own father/boyfriend. The police pieced together the evidence meticulously, connecting the dots that led to Will's arrest. The moment of his capture was filled with tension as the truth unraveled before their eyes. The arrest of Will left the Dupixent family shattered. Their grief mingled with shock and confusion at finding out about a new family member in such a horrifying way. The revelation of the murderer's identity brought closure to some, but it also reopened old wounds, leaving the family grappling with the complexity of their emotions. They were left to mourn not only the loss of James, but also the loss of the relationship they could have had with Will, had they known the truth earlier. The trial that followed the shocking murder of James Dupixent captivated the South Florida, as people eagerly awaited justice for the millionaire's untimely demise. District Attorney Francine Villagra led the prosecution, presenting a compelling case that shed light on James's secret life and the motive behind his murder. Attorney Ulrich Capobianco, representing the defense, fought to unravel the complexities of the case and ensure a fair trial. The courtroom was filled with tension as the trial unfolded. Witnesses took the stand, recounting their interactions with James and the suspects. The prosecution presented evidence, including the explicit letters and pornographic photographs found in a hidden compartment of James's penthouse. These shocking revelations provided a glimpse into the dark secrets that James had kept hidden from the world. The defense argued that there were other potential suspects and questioned the validity of the evidence presented. They highlighted the strained relationship between James and his estranged son, Nicholas Dupixent, as a possible motive for the crime. The defense also questioned the reliability of the DNA and fingerprint evidence, suggesting that it could have been contaminated or tampered with. Throughout the trial, the Dupixent family sat in the courtroom, wearing Florida Marlins uniforms in honor of their loved one, their emotions raw as they relived the pain of their loss. The guilty verdict brought a mix of relief and sorrow. Will Cooley, James's lover and secret son, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for the murder. Some felt that the punishment was too lenient given the heinous nature of the crime, while others believed it was a just outcome. The impact of the trial rippled through the victims' friends and family, forever altering their lives. They found solace in the memories of their loved one and the support of their community. The media frenzy surrounding the case slowly subsided, but the tragedy of James Dupixent's murder left an indelible mark on the city of Miami. Following the shocking conclusion of the trial, the lives of those involved in the murder of James Dupixent took unexpected turns. Will Cooley, the murderer and secret son of the victim, found himself grappling with the weight of his actions behind prison bars. Seeking redemption and reconciliation, he reached out to his newfound family, hoping to mend the shattered bonds that had led to this tragic event. Meanwhile, Nicholas Dupixent, James's estranged son, finally freed from the shadow of his father's legacy, focused on rebuilding his life. Determined to establish his own identity in the cutthroat world of finance, he immersed himself in his work, driven by a desire to prove himself and leave behind the painful memories of his father's betrayal. Brody Leach Hallister, the personal assistant who had unwittingly become entangled in this web of deception and violence, embarked on a journey of self-discovery. No longer content with the confines of his role as a mere employee, he sought a life beyond the boundaries of his past. Inspired by the events that unfolded, he decided to pursue his passion for photography, capturing the beauty and complexity of the world around him. In November 2003, the city of Miami was forever marked by the tragic death of James Dupixent. The echoes of his life and the events surrounding his murder continued to reverberate through the lives of those involved. The impact of this chilling crime would forever shape their futures, reminding them of the fragility of life and the consequences of their actions. And so concludes our investigation into the tragic death of James Dupixent. This case serves as a stark reminder of the complexity of human relationships and the devastating consequences they can sometimes bring. Danielle "Danny" Scale, a vivacious and outgoing 42-year-old woman, was widely known for her charm, wit, and remarkable success in the real estate industry. Residing in the picturesque coastal city of Newport Beach, California, Danny thrived on closing deals and took great pride in her professional achievements. However, beneath her confident exterior, Danny grappled with lingering doubts about her marriage to Jonathan Scale, her enigmatic husband, and questioned the authenticity of his intentions. In November of 2011, Danny's life was forever ended, releasing the dark secrets lurking within her seemingly idyllic marriage. The affluent community of Newport Beach, known for its luxurious estates and pristine beaches, became the backdrop for a chilling tale of deception and violence. As we delve into Danny's story, it is crucial to understand the context in which it unfolded. Newport Beach, with its gleaming yachts and upscale boutiques, had long been a haven for the wealthy and influential. Famous as the setting for the famous Fox teen drama, The O.C., the city's close proximity to Los Angeles also made it an attractive destination for those seeking a blend of opulence and tranquility. Danny, with her impeccable taste and eye for luxury, effortlessly navigated the social circles of Newport Beach. She was a regular attendee at exclusive charity galas and frequented the trendy cafes that lined the city's bustling streets. Her magnetic personality and striking beauty garnered attention wherever she went, making her a sought-after companion among the city's elite. However, beneath the glamorous facade, Danny's personal life was shrouded in uncertainty. She often confided in close friends about her concerns regarding Jonathan, her husband of just 6 months, a man whose intentions remained elusive. Despite their outwardly happy appearance, whispers of marital discord and hidden secrets circulated among Newport Beach's tight-knit community. On a chilly November evening in 2011, a peaceful neighborhood in Newport Beach, California was shattered by a heinous crime that would forever change the lives of its residents. The vibrant and bustling community, known for its picturesque beaches and luxurious lifestyle, was now engulfed in a cloud of fear and uncertainty. Danielle "Danny" Scale, a 42-year-old woman with a successful career in real estate, had become the victim of a brutal and senseless act of violence. As the news of her tragic demise spread like wildfire, shockwaves reverberated through the tight-knit community, leaving its residents in a state of disbelief. It was Robbie Matheson, a close friend, neighbor, and local fashion designer, who stumbled upon the gruesome scene that fateful evening. Robbie, known for his impeccable taste and keen eye for detail, had dropped by Danny's house for a friendly visit. Little did he know that he would soon be thrust into a nightmare. As he entered Danny's opulent home, the air was heavy with an eerie silence. The house, adorned with expensive furniture and tasteful artwork, had an unsettling stillness that sent a chill down Robbie's spine. He called out for Danny, but there was no response. Concerned, he cautiously made his way upstairs, the creaking of the wooden steps echoing through the empty hallway. Upon reaching the master bedroom, Robbie's heart sank. There, lying lifeless on the bed, was Danny. Her once vibrant and radiant presence had been extinguished, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. The sight was both shocking and heart-wrenching, and Robbie's mind raced with a flood of emotions. In a state of panic, Robbie immediately dialed 911, his voice trembling as he relayed the horrifying discovery to the authorities. Within minutes, police cars and ambulances descended upon the quiet neighborhood, their flashing lights illuminating the darkness of the night. The once peaceful neighborhood now bore the weight of a dark secret, and its residents grappled with the realization that evil could lurk even in the most idyllic of places. November 2011, a month that should have been filled with anticipation for the upcoming holiday season, had now become a haunting reminder of the fragility of life. As news of Danny Scales' tragic death spread throughout the affluent community of Newport Beach, California, the police wasted no time in launching a thorough investigation into the chilling crime. Seasoned investigators Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez were assigned to unravel the mystery surrounding Danny's untimely demise. Upon arriving at the crime scene, the detectives were met with a somber atmosphere that hung heavy in the air. The bedroom, once a sanctuary for Danny, now held the grim evidence of a violent struggle. With a keen eye for detail, Detective Hatoyevsky and Detective Rodriguez meticulously combed through the room, searching for any clues that could provide insight into the identity of the perpetrator. The absence of forced entry puzzled the investigators. How could someone have gained access to Danny's bedroom without leaving behind any trace? The detectives examined the windows and doors, meticulously checking for signs of tampering. They even enlisted the help of forensic experts to dust for fingerprints and collect DNA samples, hoping to find a breakthrough. As Detective Hatoyevsky and Detective Rodriguez tirelessly pursued leads and followed every possible avenue of inquiry, they remained determined to bring closure to Danny's grieving loved ones. The clock was ticking, and the pressure to solve the case mounted with each passing day. Jonathan Scale, a 55-year-old man, emerged as the primary suspect in the murder investigation of his wife, Danny Scale. With his suave demeanor and a facade of success, Jonathan managed to charm those around him, concealing his true nature as a master manipulator. As the investigation deepens, detectives are determined to uncover the truth behind Danny's tragic demise. Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez, seasoned investigators with a wealth of experience, took charge of the case. Their first focus was Jonathan, the man closest to Danny. With their investigative instincts honed, the detectives meticulously interrogated him, hoping to peel back the layers of deception and uncover the truth. Jonathan, a self-proclaimed entrepreneur, had carefully crafted an image of success and prosperity. However, the detectives soon discovered a darker side to his seemingly perfect life. Despite being refused permission to look into his financial records, the police managed to uncover a web of deceit and mounting debts. It became clear that Jonathan's lavish lifestyle was built on a foundation of lies and borrowed money. As the detectives probed further, they unearthed a series of suspicious activities in the months leading up to Danny's murder. Bank statements revealed large withdrawals and unexplained transfers from Danny's funds, raising red flags. Witnesses also came forward, recounting instances of Jonathan's volatile temper and controlling behavior towards Danny. The investigation took a dramatic turn when an anonymous tip led the detectives to a storage unit rented under Jonathan's name. Inside, they discovered a hidden cache of evidence, including a blood-stained shirt, something he claimed was from an accident playing basketball. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigative team, providing a crucial link between Jonathan and the crime scene. The truth, hidden beneath layers of deception, was slowly being unraveled, bringing justice closer for Danny and closure for her loved ones. As the investigation into the murder of Danielle, Danny, Scale unfolded, another person of interest emerged, Jason J-Boy Hermosa, a 19-year-old with a taste for the finer things in life. Jason was no stranger to the affluent community of Newport Beach, California, where he was something of a modern-day male geisha to Orange County's elite. A frequent guest at high-end parties and exclusive events, his striking good looks and charismatic personality made him a sought-after companion among the elite. But behind the glamorous facade, Jason possessed a manipulative and controlling nature. He saw Jonathan Scale, Danny's husband and his current lover, as his ticket to a world of luxury. Their secret affair had been brewing for months, hidden beneath the surface of Newport Beach's pristine reputation. The affair was a dangerous game of sex and deceit, with Jason yearning for the wealth and status that Jonathan seemed to possess effortlessly. The police, eager to uncover any connections to the crime, focused their attention on Jason. They brought him in for questioning, hoping to peel back the layers of deception and uncover the truth. Jason's response was a volatile mix of anger and denial. He vehemently distanced himself from any involvement in Danny's murder, swearing on his life that he had nothing to do with her or the heinous act. His alibi, he claimed, was attending a high-profile charity event on the night of the crime. He even provided photographs and news articles from that evening as evidence, showcasing his presence among the city's elite. The detectives scrutinized the evidence, carefully examining the photographs and articles. They cross-referenced Jason's alibi with witness statements and surveillance footage from the event. The pieces of the puzzle began to come together, painting a picture of a young man desperate to escape his own reality and immerse himself in a world of opulence. The case of Danielle, Danny, Scale's murder was far from over. With two suspects in the spotlight, the detectives faced the daunting task of unraveling the truth from a web of lies and deception. As they dug deeper, they would soon discover that the secrets hidden in the shadows of Newport Beach were darker and more sinister than anyone could have imagined. In a stunning turn of events, the investigation into the murder of Danielle, Danny, Scale took a dramatic twist when a hidden safe was discovered by Robbie Matheson, a close friend and neighbor of the victim. This breakthrough occurred on an unusually rainy day in Newport Beach, California, in November of 2011. Inside the hidden safe, the police found a treasure trove of financial records that exposed a web of deceit and fraud orchestrated by Jonathan Scale, Danny's husband. The records revealed him as the head of a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme that spanned across 6 states, involving real estate ventures, a chain of daycares, and even a network of strip clubs. This shocking revelation left the investigators in utter disbelief, as they realized they were dealing with a criminal empire far more complex than they had initially anticipated. The evidence uncovered in the safe detailed Jonathan's elaborate scheme, which had ensnared unsuspecting investors and left a trail of financial ruin in its wake. The records showed falsified documents, forged signatures, and a complex network of shell companies designed to mask the illegal activities. The police now had a clearer understanding of Jonathan's motive for silencing Danny, as she had become a potential threat to his fraudulent empire. As news of the discovery spread, media outlets seized upon the story, dubbing it the Newport Beach Ponzi scandal. Journalists delved into the intricate details of the scheme, uncovering the extent of Jonathan's fraudulent activities, revealing him to be a fake millionaire. The scandal sent shockwaves through the community, tarnishing the reputation of Newport Beach, an affluent coastal city known for its picturesque beaches and luxurious lifestyle. With the newfound evidence, the police intensified their efforts to bring Jonathan to justice. They meticulously analyzed the financial records, cross-referencing them with other ongoing investigations into similar Ponzi schemes. The collaboration between law enforcement agencies from multiple states became crucial in unraveling the full extent of Jonathan's criminal activities. The investigation into the murder of Danny Scale had now evolved into a high-profile case that captivated the nation. The media circus surrounding the Newport Beach Ponzi scandal only added to the pressure on the police to solve the murder and dismantle Jonathan's fraudulent empire. Ilea Evans, a 24-year-old activist with a strong sense of social justice, found herself entangled in the investigation surrounding the murder of Danielle "Danny" Scale. Ilea, known for her unwavering determination and passion for social causes, had long suspected Jonathan Scale, Danny's husband, of being involved in illicit activities. Her suspicions were fueled by rumors, later proven true, circulating in the close-knit rich community of Newport Beach, California. On a chilly November morning in 2011, Ilea was called in for questioning by the police. The interrogation room was dimly lit, casting long shadows on the walls. Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky, a seasoned investigator, sat across from her, his piercing gaze fixed on her every move. Ilea, dressed in her signature black hoodie and worn-out sneakers, maintained an air of defiance as she answered the detective's questions. She vehemently denied any involvement in Danny's murder, her voice quivering with a mix of anger and determination. "I may be an activist, but I would never resort to violence," she declared, her words echoing through the sterile room. The detective pressed on, probing for any evidence that could link Ilea to the crime. He raised his eyebrows, his skepticism evident, as he presented her with photographs taken at a protest she had organized against Jonathan's alleged fraudulent activities. Ilea's eyes narrowed, her resolve growing stronger as she explained, "I may have been vocal about his corruption, but I believe in exposing the truth through peaceful means." As the interrogation continued, Ilea recounted her encounters with Jonathan, describing his extravagant lifestyle and the aura of power that surrounded him. She spoke of the rumors she had heard about his involvement in an interstate network of strip clubs and a chain of daycares, all part of an elaborate Ponzi scheme. Her words painted a vivid picture of a man consumed by greed and willing to go to great lengths to protect his empire. Despite the lack of concrete evidence linking Ilea to the crime, the police were determined to explore every lead. They scrutinized her alibi, interviewed her acquaintances, and searched for any connection she might have had to the murder. Ilea remained steadfast, her unwavering belief in justice propelling her forward. In a stunning turn of events, the police cracked the case of Danielle "Danny" Scale's murder and apprehended the culprit responsible for this heinous crime. Jonathan Scale, the victim's own husband, was taken into custody, facing charges related to her untimely demise. The breakthrough in the investigation came when a secret audio tape was discovered, capturing Danny's chilling words about her husband. "My husband is a fake millionaire." This revelation provided a crucial piece of evidence that helped connect the dots and shed light on the sinister truth behind Danny's murder. Jonathan, who presented himself as a successful entrepreneur, was revealed to be living a life built on lies and deceit. Behind his polished exterior, he had been running a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme, defrauding unsuspecting thousands of victims across 6 states. Shockingly, his fraudulent activities extended beyond real estate, encompassing a chain of daycares and even a network of strip clubs. The police, armed with this newfound evidence, were able to establish Jonathan's motive for silencing his wife. By eliminating Danny, he sought to protect his ill-gotten wealth and maintain his false image as a wealthy individual. However, his carefully constructed facade crumbled when the police uncovered the truth. The arrest of Jonathan Scale sent shockwaves through the community of Newport Beach, California. This affluent neighborhood, known for its picturesque landscapes and luxurious lifestyle, was rocked by this dark and disturbing crime. The residents, who once admired Jonathan for his apparent success, are now left reeling from the realization that they were living alongside a master manipulator and a cold-blooded murderer. The courtroom was filled with anticipation as the trial of Jonathan Scale, the man accused of orchestrating the murder of his wife, Danielle "Danny" Scale, reached its climax. The prosecution, led by the determined and passionate prosecutor, Dana Chiu, meticulously presented a compelling case against Jonathan. The defense, represented by the skilled attorney, Reynolds Bastani, fought tooth and nail to protect Jonathan's interests. Throughout the trial, the courtroom was captivated by the testimonies of witnesses and the presentation of evidence. The prosecution called upon Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez, the seasoned investigators who meticulously combed through the crime scene, to testify. They recounted the chilling details of the crime scene and the painstaking efforts they undertook to uncover the truth. The defense, on the other hand, sought to cast doubt on the evidence presented by the prosecution. They called upon expert witnesses to challenge the credibility of certain pieces of evidence, attempting to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. However, their efforts were met with skepticism as the prosecution skillfully dismantled their arguments. After weeks of intense deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the foreperson stood up to deliver the verdict. Guilty. The word reverberated through the room, leaving Jonathan Scale stunned. His carefully constructed facade crumbled before his eyes as the reality of his actions sank in. The sentencing, which took place a few weeks later, marked the end of Jonathan's reign of deception. The judge, taking into account the severity of the crime and Jonathan's lack of remorse, handed down a sentence of life behind bars, a fitting punishment for a man who had shattered the lives of those who loved him. As the trial came to a close, the impact of the verdict rippled through the lives of the victims' friends and family. The trial served as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of greed and the length some individuals would go to protect their secrets. Following the conclusion of the trial, the lives of those involved in the case took divergent paths. Jonathan Scale, the mastermind behind the murder of his wife, faced the consequences of his heinous actions as he began his sentence behind bars. The courtroom was abuzz with a mix of emotions as the guilty verdict for his Ponzi scheme was announced, marking the end of Jonathan's reign of deception. Meanwhile, the dedicated police investigators, Detective Morgan Hatoyevsky and Detective Polita Rodriguez, continued their tireless pursuit of justice. They remained committed to ensuring that no stone was left unturned in their quest for truth. Their unwavering determination and meticulous attention to detail were instrumental in bringing Jonathan to justice. In the aftermath of the trial, the community of Newport Beach began to slowly regain its sense of security. The shocking murder had sent shockwaves through the close-knit neighborhood, leaving residents on edge. With Jonathan Scale behind bars, a collective sigh of relief could be felt as the community began to rebuild and restore its once tranquil atmosphere, but not before drawing attention to the intricacies of the criminal justice system and the devastating consequences of greed. The case of Danielle "Danny" Scale, the woman whose dying words exposed her husband's web of lies, serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. In the affluent city of Newport Beach, a community shattered by deceit and violence learned that even the most charming facade can hide the most sinister secrets. Carolyn Hershey was a 29-year-old woman with a passion for life and creativity. She was known for her bright smile and warm personality, always ready to make new friends and share her love of photography. Born and raised in San Mateo, California, Carolyn went to the Academy of Art University where she honed her skills in photography. She had a knack for capturing beautiful moments and often posted her work on Instagram, where she had a growing following. Carolyn had a close-knit family. Her younger sister, Jessica, was her best friend, and they shared many adventures together. Their parents, John and Lisa, were supportive and loving, always encouraging their daughters to follow their dreams. Carolyn often talked about her dream of starting a family and building a life filled with love and creativity. In June 2011, Carolyn had just married Gaskell Hershey Jr., a charming and successful man from Macon, Georgia. They chose the Marriott Maui Resort in Hawaii for their honeymoon, a place Carolyn had always wanted to visit. She was excited about the trip and shared her plans on Facebook, posting pictures of the resort and the beautiful Hawaiian scenery. Before her disappearance, Carolyn spent her days exploring the island, taking photographs of the beaches, sunsets, and tropical plants. She visited popular tourist spots like Haleakala National Park and the Road to Hana, documenting everything with her camera. She was also excited to try local foods, including poke bowls and shaved ice, and often talked about the delicious meals she had. Carolyn's friends described her as a vibrant and positive person. She had a talent for making people feel special and loved. Her Instagram stories were filled with messages of gratitude and joy, reflecting her optimistic outlook on life. She enjoyed reading, often sharing her thoughts on popular books of the time. She also loved listening to music and was a big fan of artists like Adele and Bruno Mars. As Carolyn embarked on her honeymoon, she was full of hope and excitement for the future. She looked forward to building a life with Gaskell, dreaming of a happy marriage and eventually starting the family. However, her dreams were tragically cut short, leaving her family and friends in deep sorrow and confusion. Carolyn's story is a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. Her vibrant spirit and passion for life left a lasting impact on everyone who knew her. On June 12, 2011, Carolyn Hershey was last seen at the Marriott Maui Resort in Hawaii. The next morning, Linda Chang, a hotel staff member, noticed that Carolyn had missed several scheduled activities. Linda, who had worked at the resort for over 5 years, found this unusual. Carolyn had been enthusiastic about the snorkeling trip and the lure dinner she had signed up for, sharing her excitement with Linda just the day before. Concerned, Linda knocked on the door of Carolyn's room. There was no answer. She waited for a moment, then knocked again, louder this time. Still, there was no response. Linda decided to use her master key to enter the room, following hotel protocol for guest safety. Inside, the room was tidy, with no signs of a struggle. Carolyn's suitcase was still there, along with her camera and some clothes. However, Carolyn and her personal items, like her phone and purse, were missing. Feeling uneasy, Linda reported Carolyn's absence to the hotel management. The manager on duty immediately took action. He called the local police and informed them about the missing guest. By this time, it was late morning, and the sun was high in the sky, casting a bright light over the resort. The police arrived quickly, led by Officer Angelin Cutie Pie Martinez, a seasoned detective known for her thoroughness and attention to detail. She asked Linda to describe what she had found and then started a search of the area. The police questioned hotel staff and guests, hoping to find someone who had seen Carolyn. One guest, Jason Millstone, staying in the room next to Carolyn's, recalled hearing a loud argument from their room the previous night. He mentioned it to the police, adding that he had seen Gaskell, Carolyn's husband, acting strangely afterward. Meanwhile, Carolyn's husband, Gaskell Hershey, appeared distraught. He told the police he had woken up to find his wife missing and had been searching for her since early morning. His behavior seemed anxious, and he repeatedly insisted that Carolyn must have gone for an early morning swim and gotten lost. Despite an extensive search of the resort grounds and nearby beaches, Carolyn was nowhere to be found. The police broadened their search to the surrounding area, interviewing more witnesses and looking for any clues that might explain her sudden disappearance. As the hours turned into days, the mystery deepened. News of Carolyn's disappearance spread quickly, with local media covering the story. Friends and family from California flew in, desperate for answers. The Marriott Maui Resort, usually a place of joy and relaxation, became the center of a tense and heartbreaking investigation. The police arrived at the Marriott Maui Resort quickly on the morning of June 13, 2011. Leading the team was Detective Mark Kim Linzis, a calm and meticulous investigator known for solving difficult cases. Officer Angelin Cutie Pie Martinez, who was already on the scene, briefed him on what they had learned so far. They knew Carolyn Hershey had been missing for about 24 hours, and time was critical. The room Carolyn shared with her husband Gaskell was their first stop. It looked tidy and undisturbed. The bed was neatly made, their luggage was in place, and nothing seemed out of order. But Detective Kim Linzis noticed Carolyn's camera on the nightstand and her suitcase, partially unpacked. He also noted that some of her personal items, like her phone and purse, were missing, which was strange for someone who had supposedly just gone for a swim. The police used various tools to examine the room. They dusted for fingerprints, looking for any signs of a struggle or someone else's presence. They used luminol to check for traces of blood, but the tests came back clean. Kim Linzis interviewed Gaskell, who claimed he woke up to find his wife gone. His story seemed rehearsed, and his anxiety was apparent, but there was no direct evidence linking him to her disappearance. Outside the room, police expanded their search to the resort grounds. They interviewed hotel staff and guests. Linda Chang, a hotel employee who first noticed Carolyn's absence, provided a detailed account of what she found when she entered the room. Jason Millstone, the guest next door, reported hearing a loud argument from Carolyn in Gaskell's room the night before. Kim Linzis and his team also checked the resort's security footage. They saw Carolyn and Gaskell returning to their room around 10 p.m. on June 12th. They were holding hands, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. However, later footage showed Gaskell leaving the room alone around 3 a.m., looking nervous and hurried. He returned about an hour later, his clothes slightly disheveled. The police continued their search along the nearby beaches, fearing that Carolyn's body might have been washed ashore. They used boats and divers to explore the ocean near the resort but found nothing. The lack of physical evidence made the case even more challenging. Despite the clean crime scene, Detective Kim Linzis felt that something was off. He knew they needed to dig deeper into the lives of Carolyn and Gaskell. As the investigation continued, the police focused on finding any small detail that could lead them to the truth about what happened to Carolyn Hershey. Gaskell Hershey Jr., 33, became the primary suspect in his wife Carolyn's disappearance. Gaskell, a successful businessman from Macon, Georgia, had charmed many with his good looks and wealth. He and Carolyn had seemed like the perfect couple, especially on social media, where they posted pictures of their wedding and honeymoon. But as the police dug deeper, a different picture of Gaskell began to emerge. Detective Mark Kim Linzis and Officer Angel and Cutie Pie Martinez started their interrogation of Gaskell at the Marriott Maui Resort. Initially, Gaskell appeared calm and cooperative, insisting he had no idea what had happened to his wife. He claimed they had gone to bed around 10 p.m. after a romantic evening. When he woke up around 6 a.m., Carolyn was gone. He assumed she had gone for an early morning swim, something she loved to do. As the questioning continued, Gaskell's composure began to crack. Detective Kim Linzis asked about their relationship, and Gaskell's answers became defensive. He admitted they had arguments, which he described as normal marital disagreements. However, friends and family told a different story. They said Gaskell was controlling and possessive, often isolating Carolyn from her friends and family. Further investigation revealed troubling details. Carolyn's sister, Jessica, shared messages where Carolyn expressed fear and uncertainty about her marriage. She described Gaskell's behavior as increasingly erratic. These messages painted a picture of a relationship in turmoil, contrasting sharply with the happy images they projected online. The police also learned about Gaskell's financial troubles. Despite his appearance of wealth, he had significant debts. His business was struggling, and he had taken out several large loans. This raised the possibility that Gaskell had a motive to harm Carolyn, perhaps to gain access to her life insurance or to cover up his financial problems. Detective Kim Linzis asked Gaskell about the security footage showing him leaving the room at 3 a.m. Gaskell stammered, claiming he went for a walk because he couldn't sleep. His story seemed inconsistent, and his nervous demeanor raised more red flags. Despite his increasingly evasive answers, Gaskell stuck to his story. He maintained that he loved Carolyn and would never harm her. But the more he talked, the more suspicious he seemed. The police decided to keep him under close watch, knowing they needed more evidence to make an arrest. As the investigation into Gaskell continued, the police explored other leads, hoping to uncover the truth about what happened to Carolyn Hershey. Jason Nullstone, 31, was the second suspect in the case of Carolyn Hershey's disappearance. Jason, a Canadian YouTuber, was staying at the Marriott Maui Resort in the room next to Carolyn and Gaskell. Jason's YouTube channel, filled with travel adventures and extreme sports, had made him somewhat famous. He was outgoing, friendly, and always looking for his next big story. Detective Mark Kim Linzis and Officer Angel and Cutie Pie Martinez brought Jason in for questioning. Jason was cooperative and seemed genuinely concerned about Carolyn. He told the detectives about several disturbing encounters he had with Gaskell during his stay at the resort. Jason recounted how Gaskell had approached him several times and asked him for sex, making him feel uncomfortable. On one occasion, Gaskell had dropped his bathrobe and lunged at Jason, an incident that Jason had reported to the hotel staff. The detectives asked Jason about the night Carolyn disappeared. He mentioned hearing loud arguing from their room around midnight. He said it sounded intense, with raised voices and slamming doors. Jason couldn't make out the exact words, but noted that it lasted for about an hour. He didn't think much of it at the time, assuming it was just a typical argument. Jason also told the detectives that Gaskell seemed nervous and agitated the following morning. He saw Gaskell pacing back and forth outside the room, checking his phone frequently. When Jason asked if everything was okay, Gaskell gave a vague response and quickly walked away. The police found Jason's account credible. He seemed genuinely concerned for Carolyn and had no apparent motive to harm her. Jason was known for his adventurous spirit, not for any violent behavior. However, they had to consider all possibilities and asked him about his whereabouts during the critical hours. Jason explained that he had been editing videos in his room and had not left until morning. To verify his alibi, the police checked the hotel's Wi-Fi logs, confirming that Jason had been online during the time in question. They also reviewed security footage which showed Jason entering his room around 10 p.m. and not leaving until 7 a.m. the next day. Despite Jason's disturbing encounters with Gaskell, there was no direct evidence linking him to Carolyn's disappearance. The police continued to investigate other leads, but Jason remained a person of interest due to his proximity and the information he provided. As the investigation progressed, the police were determined to find out the truth and bring justice for Carolyn Hershey. On June 15, 2011, 3 days after Carolyn Hershey disappeared, new evidence came to light. It was a sunny morning with clear skies, typical for Hawaii. A beachgoer found something unusual while walking along the shore near the Marriott Maui resort. She noticed a piece of cloth tangled in the rocks. Upon closer inspection, she realized it was part of a woman's dress. She called the police right away. Detective Mark Kim Linzis and Officer Angelin Cutie Pie Martinez arrived promptly and carefully examined the fabric. It was a torn piece of a floral dress, matching the one Carolyn was last seen wearing. The discovery reignited hope for finding more clues about her disappearance. The police expanded their search area, focusing on the rocky shoreline and nearby waters. They brought in a team of divers to explore the ocean floor, looking for any additional evidence. The search was painstaking and thorough, with divers scanning every inch of the seabed. They used underwater cameras and metal detectors, hoping to find something that could provide answers. Meanwhile, on the shore, forensic experts analyzed the torn dress piece. They carefully bagged and labeled it, noting its exact location. They checked for any bloodstains, fibers, or other traces that could offer more information. The cloth was sent to the lab for further analysis, including tests for DNA and any potential chemical residues. Detective Kim Linzis also revisited the hotel's security footage, focusing on the area around the beach. He noticed a shadowy figure moving near the water around 4 a.m. on the night Carolyn vanished. Although the footage was grainy, it provided a new lead. The police interviewed hotel guests and staff again, asking if anyone had seen anything suspicious at that time. The investigation took another turn when Officer Martinez received a tip from the local fisherman, who reported seeing a man near the water early that morning. The description matched Gaskell Hershey. The fisherman said the man appeared to be struggling with something heavy, which he then pushed into the water. With this new information, the police brought Gaskell in for further questioning. His earlier calm demeanor had vanished, replaced by visible anxiety. When confronted with the new evidence, Gaskell became defensive and evasive, denying any involvement and claiming he was being framed. His responses raised even more suspicion. As the lab results came in, they confirmed that the torn dress belonged to Carolyn. The presence of seawater and sand indicated she might have been in the water. This crucial piece of evidence pushed the investigation forward, bringing the police closer to uncovering the truth. Detective Kim Linzis and his team knew they were getting closer. The new evidence provided a clearer picture of what might have happened, and they were determined to solve the mystery of Carolyn Hershey's disappearance. Oliver Kamehameha, 27, was the third suspect in the case of Carolyn Hershey's disappearance. Oliver was a busboy at the Marriott Maui resort, known for his quiet and introverted nature. He had worked at the resort for 2 years and was often described as a hardworking but reserved individual. However, Oliver had a past involving minor drug offenses, specifically marijuana, which made the police take a closer look at him. Detective Mark Kim Linzis and Officer Angelin Cutie Pie Martinez called Oliver in for questioning. Oliver seemed nervous but cooperative. He admitted that he had been having a sexual relationship with Gaskell Hershey, Carolyn's husband. This relationship started just 30 minutes after Gaskell and Carolyn arrived at the resort. Oliver said Gaskell pulled him into a bathroom to have sex while Carolyn was checking in. Oliver explained that he was involved with Gaskell purely for financial reasons. Oliver revealed a critical piece of information. Carolyn had walked in on him and Gaskell just hours before she disappeared. He described the encounter as shocking and tense. Carolyn was visibly upset and stormed out of the room. Oliver said that Gaskell appeared angry and worried after she left. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the investigation. The police asked Oliver about his whereabouts on the night of Carolyn's disappearance. Oliver stated that he had been working late and then went to his apartment, which was nearby. He claimed he had no involvement in Carolyn's disappearance and was only concerned about keeping his job. To verify Oliver's alibi, the police checked the resort's employee logs and interviewed his coworkers. They confirmed that Oliver had finished his shift around midnight. Security footage showed him leaving the resort and heading to his apartment. There was no evidence to suggest he had returned to the resort during the critical hours when Carolyn went missing. Despite Oliver's troubling relationship with Gaskell, the police found no direct evidence linking him to Carolyn's disappearance. His story about the encounter with Carolyn provided a possible motive for Gaskell, but did not implicate Oliver directly. His nervous demeanor during questioning was noted, but it could have been due to fear of losing his job and not necessarily guilt. As the investigation continued, the police kept Oliver under surveillance but focused more on Gaskell, whose behavior and inconsistencies were becoming more suspicious. The new information about the encounter between Carolyn, Gaskell, and Oliver added crucial context to the case, helping the police piece together the events leading up to Carolyn's disappearance. Detective Kim Linzis and his team were determined to uncover the truth and bring justice to Carolyn Hershey. On June 20, 2011, the police identified Gaskell Hershey as the murderer of his wife, Carolyn. Gaskell, 33, was a successful businessman from Macon, Georgia. He had a charming personality and came from a wealthy family. However, beneath his polished exterior, Gaskell had a controlling and possessive streak. Friends and family had noticed his erratic behavior leading up to the honeymoon. The motive for the murder became clear as the police pieced together the evidence. Carolyn had discovered Gaskell's secret affair with Oliver Kamehameha, a busboy at the resort. Gaskell, desperate to hide his secret, killed Carolyn to prevent her from exposing him. The couple had argued the night she disappeared, and Gaskell's anger and fear led him to commit the crime. On the morning of June 13, Gaskell was seen on security footage leaving their room at 3 a.m., looking nervous and hurried. He returned an hour later, his clothes disheveled. This was when the police believed he disposed of Carolyn's body in the ocean. The torn piece of her dress found on the shore confirmed this theory. The arrest took place in the early afternoon of June 20. Detective Mark Kim Linzis and Officer Angela and Cutie Vi Martinez, along with a team of officers, approached Gaskell at the Marriott Maui Resort. Gaskell was sitting by the pool, pretending to read a magazine. When the officers approached him, he seemed startled but quickly tried to compose himself. "Gaskell Hershey, you are under arrest for the murder of Carolyn Hershey," Detective Kim Linzis announced. Gaskell's face turned pale, and he started to protest, but the officers quickly cuffed him. He was visibly shaken, realizing that his secrets had caught up with him. As Gaskell was led away, the resort guests watched in shock. News of the arrest spread quickly. Carolyn's family, who had been waiting anxiously for any news, were both relieved and devastated. Jessica, Carolyn's sister, broke down in tears upon hearing that her sister's murderer had been caught. The family had suspected Gaskell but hoped they were wrong. The arrest brought a mix of emotions to Carolyn's friends and family. They were glad that justice was being served, but heartbroken over the loss of Carolyn. The case had attracted national attention, with major news outlets like CNN and the New York Times covering the story. People across the country were shocked by the tragic end of what had seemed like a fairy tale romance. With Gaskell in custody, the police prepared to bring the case to trial, hoping to ensure that Carolyn's murderer would be held accountable for his actions. The trial of Gaskell Hershey began on October 10, 2011. The courtroom was packed with reporters, family members, and curious onlookers. The case had drawn national attention, with news outlets covering every detail. The prosecution was led by Amanda Casatocco, a 45-year-old seasoned prosecutor known for her tough but fair approach. Casatocco presented a strong case, detailing the events leading up to Carolyn's disappearance and the evidence pointing to Gaskell. Casatocco argued that Gaskell had a clear motive to kill his wife. She explained how Carolyn had discovered his affair with Oliver Kamehameha and threatened to expose him. Casatocco showed the security footage of Gaskell leaving his room at 3 a.m. and returning an hour later looking disheveled. She also presented the torn piece of Carolyn's dress found on the shore, which matched the dress she was last seen wearing. The defense was led by Thomas Benihana, a 50-year-old defense attorney known for his smooth-talking and persuasive arguments. Benihana claimed that there was no solid evidence directly linking Gaskell to Carolyn's death. He suggested that Carolyn might have drowned accidentally while swimming early in the morning, as she loved the ocean. Benihana argued that Gaskell was being unfairly targeted due to his relationship with Oliver. The trial lasted 3 weeks, with emotional testimonies from Carolyn's family and friends. Jessica Hershey, Carolyn's sister, gave a tearful statement about her sister's fears and concerns regarding her marriage to Gaskell. The jury was visibly moved by her testimony, and it added a personal touch to the prosecution's case. On November 1, 2011, the jury reached a verdict. Gaskell Hershey was found guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and sorrow. Carolyn's family hugged each other, crying tears of both joy and sadness. They had finally received justice for Carolyn, but the pain of losing her remained. The judge sentenced Gaskell to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Gaskell showed little emotion as the sentence was read, staring blankly ahead. His defense team announced plans to appeal the verdict, but the overwhelming evidence made it unlikely that the decision would be overturned. The sentencing brought a sense of closure to Carolyn's family and friends. While they still mourned her loss, they were grateful that her killer was being held accountable. The trial had been a painful but necessary step in their journey to heal and move forward. The case of Carolyn Hershey remained in the public eye for months, a tragic reminder of how secrets and lies can destroy lives. After the trial, life slowly began to return to normal for those involved, but the impact of Carolyn Hershey's murder lingered. Gaskell Hershey started his life sentence at the maximum security prison in Honolulu. He spent his days in solitary confinement, away from other inmates. His appeals were quickly dismissed, and he became a forgotten figure, his once charming personality now a distant memory. Detective Mark Kim Linzis and Officer Angle and Cutie Pie Martinez received commendations for their work on the case. Their dedication and thorough investigation were crucial in bringing Gaskell to justice. Kim Linzis continued his work with the Maui Police Department, becoming a mentor to younger officers. Martinez, inspired by the case, pursued a degree in forensic science to further her career in law enforcement. Oliver Kamehameha, the buzzboy involved with Gaskell, faced a challenging aftermath. Although he was not charged with any crime, the media attention made it difficult for him to find work. He eventually moved to the mainland and changed his name, trying to leave the past behind. He found solace in working with a local charity that helped troubled youth, hoping to make a positive difference in their lives. Jason Millstone, the Canadian YouTuber who had reported Gaskell's disturbing behavior, returned to his travels. He posted a video on his channel about the experience, emphasizing the importance of speaking up when witnessing suspicious activities. His followers grew in number, appreciating his bravery and commitment to truth. The Marriott Maui Resort also felt the impact of the crime. The management implemented stricter security measures and offered counseling services to staff affected by the incident. They worked to restore the resort's reputation, ensuring the guests felt safe and secure. In the end, while justice was served, the shadow of Carolyn's tragic death affected everyone involved. Her memory lived on through the efforts of her loved ones, and her story became a reminder of the importance of vigilance and the impact of secrets. Callie Carter was 34 years old and worked as an assistant district attorney in Galveston County, Texas. She was well known in her town for being very good at her job, especially when it came to fighting crime involving the many cults that operated in the area. Many people in Galveston admired her hard work and dedication. Callie was not just about her job. She was also a big part of the community. She often organized charity events to help people in need and loved participating in the town's festivals, like the annual Galveston Island Food and Wine Festival. Callie lived in a cozy house on a quiet street in Galveston. She was married to James Carter, though their relationship had become strained. Despite this, she remained hopeful and focused on her future. She had big dreams for her career and wanted to make Galveston a safer place for everyone. Callie attended the University of Texas at Austin for her law degree, where she graduated with honors. Her passion for law and justice was evident from a young age, often talking about her dreams of someday becoming a judge when she was just 3 years old. Her life was full of promise and potential, and she had a bright future ahead of her. Callie's family was very important to her. She had a close relationship with her parents, Linda and Robert Jenkins, who lived nearby in Houston. She also had an older brother, Tim, a successful judge in Montana who often visited with his wife and kids. Callie's friends described her as optimistic and full of energy. She was always smiling and had a positive outlook on life, even when things were tough. In the days before her death, Callie was busy preparing for a big case against a new cult that had begun attracting members around Galveston Beach. She spent long hours at the office, but still made time to help organize a local charity event to support homeless shelters. She was excited about the future and had plans to take a short vacation with her family after the trial. Callie's untimely death left a void in the community and among those who loved her. Her dedication to her work and her caring nature made her a beloved figure in Galveston. On the morning of June 12, 2004, Galveston was waking up to a warm, sunny day. The town was quiet, with people going about their usual routines. Emily Ruiz, a close friend and neighbor of Callie Carter, was worried. Callie had missed their morning jogs, something she never did. Emily decided to check on her, hoping everything was okay. Emily walked to Callie's house, which was just a few houses down the street. She knocked on the door but got no answer. Growing more concerned, Emily tried the door and found it unlocked. She stepped inside, calling out for Callie. As she walked into the living room, she was met with a horrifying sight. Callie was lying on the floor in a pool of blood. She had been stabbed multiple times, and there were strange marks all over her body. Emily's heart raced as she pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911. Her voice trembled as she spoke to the operator.
911, what's your emergency?
It's my friend, Callie Carter. She's on the floor. There's blood everywhere. I think she's dead. Please, send help.
The 911 operator tried to calm Emily down while dispatching emergency services to the scene. Emily, still in shock, could hardly believe what she was seeing. She stayed on the phone with the operator, who asked her to wait outside until the police arrived. Police and emergency medical services arrived quickly at the scene. They found Emily outside, still in tears and clearly traumatized. The police immediately began to assess the scene and secure the perimeter. They called in forensics experts to help gather evidence. As news of the murder spread through Galveston, the community was in shock. Callie Carter was a well-known and respected figure, and her violent death left everyone reeling. The small town known for its beach and pier was suddenly the center of a major crime investigation. The police arrived at Callie Carter's house quickly after Emily Ruiz's 911 call on the morning of June 12, 2004. It was a sunny day in Galveston, Texas, but the scene inside the house was grim. Detective Sarah Jenkins and Officer Mark Davis led the investigation. Known for their attention to detail, they knew this was going to be a tough case. Detective Jenkins, a cousin of Callie and a seasoned investigator with a calm demeanor, took charge immediately. She directed the officers to secure the area and keep onlookers away. Officer Davis, who was younger and eager, followed her lead, making sure everything was handled by the book. The crime scene in Callie's living room was chaotic. Blood was splattered on the walls and furniture, showing signs of a violent struggle. Callie's body lay in the middle of the room, with multiple stab wounds and strange marks on her skin. The letter Z had been branded in several places on her body, adding a disturbing element to the scene. Forensics experts arrived and began their work. They used luminol to check for hidden blood traces, revealing more about the brutal attack. They dusted for fingerprints, collected hair and fiber samples, and carefully photographed the entire area. The forensics team worked methodically, knowing that every piece of evidence could be crucial. Detective Jenkins noticed a broken vase and some scattered papers, which suggested a fight had taken place. She pointed these out to Officer Davis, who made detailed notes. They also found a bloody knife in the kitchen sink, which was quickly bagged as evidence. While Jenkins and Davis were busy inside, officers canvassed the neighborhood, talking to anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual. A few neighbors reported hearing loud noises the night before, but no one had called the police. As the investigation continued, Jenkins and Davis discussed possible motives. They knew Callie was working on prosecuting a strange cult that had been attracting hundreds of converts in the Galveston area. The branding with the letter Z seemed like a possible link to the cult. Detective Jenkins also remembered that Callie's husband, James Carter, had a troubled past and a rocky relationship with Callie. They decided to question him as soon as possible. The detectives knew they had to consider all possibilities and leave no stone unturned. James Carter, 36, was the first suspect in the investigation. He was Callie's husband, and their relationship had been increasingly rocky. James was known around Galveston as a lazy, unemployed man, very different from his successful wife. People often saw him arguing with Callie in public. James had a history of cheating and had been acting strangely in the weeks before Callie's murder. The police brought James in for questioning on the afternoon of June 12, 2004. Detective Sarah Jenkins and Officer Mark Davis conducted the interrogation. James appeared nervous and restless, shifting in his seat and avoiding eye contact.
Where were you last night?
I was home, watching Jay Leno and the Reagan funeral.
Can anyone confirm that?
No, not really. Callie went to bed early. I was alone.
Detective Jenkins took note of his inconsistent alibi. She knew they needed more to go on, so she continued to probe.
We found a bloody knife in your kitchen sink. How do you explain that?
I don't know. I didn't touch no knife.
As the questioning continued, James's story seemed to fall apart. He couldn't provide a clear timeline of his actions the night Callie was murdered. His behavior became more erratic, and he started to sweat.
James, we know you'd been having an affair with a woman named Maureen. Did Callie find out about her?
She knew. But that ain't mean I killed her.
Throughout the interrogation, James's responses were inconsistent and unconvincing. Detective Jenkins decided to take a break and regroup. They needed to verify his alibi and gather more evidence before they could move forward. The police also searched James's personal belongings and found troubling evidence. There were sexually explicit letters from several women. They also found a hidden stash of $3,000, raising more questions about James' activities. As the day went on, it became clear that James Carter was hiding something. The detectives knew they had to keep digging to uncover the truth. They decided to question Maureen next, hoping to find more links between her and James. Galveston was buzzing with rumors about the case. Everyone was eager for answers, and the police were determined to provide them. They worked tirelessly, knowing that every detail could bring them closer to solving the murder of Callie Carter. The second suspect in the investigation was Maureen Zaftrapines, 56, the secretive leader of Xenon philosophy, a new cult that had been quickly gaining popularity around Galveston. The teachings of the group were based on the 1999 Disney Channel original movie Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century.
Hello, I am Maureen Zaftrapines, agent of Lady Xenon Carr. Today I invite you to explore Xenon philosophy, a futuristic vision and a prophecy of humanity's evolution towards cosmic enlightenment. Through chanting of Lord Protozo's sacred lyrics, we attune our souls to the cosmic frequencies, preparing ourselves for the journey towards higher realms of existence. Our sacred branding of the letter Z symbolizes our commitment to Xenon philosophy as we embark on the path of spiritual enlightenment. We are not just individuals, but a cosmic community united by our shared vision. As we journey towards the stars, let us embrace the teachings of the Xenon philosophy, for within its wisdom lies the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe and the boundless potential of our souls. May the light of Lady Xenon guide us on our cosmic voyage. Cetus Lupidus.
The group believed that the futuristic vision presented in the movie, known to members as Xenon philosophy, was a prophetic glimpse into humanity's destiny, and that a character in the movie, Protozo, a rock star, was a prophet whose lyrics contained hidden messages and spiritual truths. Members considered his
songs to be sacred texts, often reciting and analyzing them for guidance. They believed that through spiritual purity and adherence to their teachings, members would travel to the space station featured in the movie. More importantly, the group considered the letter Z, short for Xenon, to be a holy symbol representing the ultimate spiritual journey. Members believed that the Z had protective and purifying powers and often used it in rituals and branding. Initiation involved a branding ceremony, where new members received a Z mark. This, combined with the fact that Callie Carter had been preparing to prosecute the cult for stockpiling weapons, made Maureen a key person of interest. Detective Sarah Jenkins and Officer Mark Davis brought Maureen in for questioning on June 13, 2004. Maureen arrived at the station dressed in 5 to 11 tactical wear. Her usual calm and composed demeanor was deeply unsettling. When asked about her whereabouts the night Callie was murdered, Maureen claimed she was at the group's headquarters leading their evening meditation. She insisted that hundreds of followers could confirm her alibi. The detectives knew they needed to verify this, but continued to press her about her relationship with Callie and the prosecution case. Maureen maintained that she and Callie had no personal quarrel, and that she was simply doing her job as Callie was doing hers. Despite her calm exterior, the detectives sensed Maureen was hiding something. They questioned her about her connection with James Carter, noting how he admitted to a sexual relationship with he. Maureen admitted to having spoken with James a few times but denied any romantic involvement. The detectives presented Maureen with letters found in James' belongings that suggested a deeper connection between them. Maureen dismissed the letters, stating that she wrote to thousands of prospective members and implying that the letters meant nothing. As the interrogation continued, Maureen's responses remained measured and deliberate. She never lost her composure, even when the detectives brought up the brandings of the letter Z found on Callie's body, a symbol associated with Zen and philosophy. Maureen brushed off the connection, stating that many things start with the letter Z, and it did not implicate her or her followers. The detectives ended the interrogation, planning to verify her alibi with her followers and dig deeper into Maureen's background and the group's activities. They returned to the crime scene, re-examining everything for any connections to Maureen or her cult. They interviewed members and looked into the group's finances and records, uncovering a complex web of relationships and secrets. Meanwhile, the community was in a state of unease. News of the murder and the involvement of the strange cult had everyone on edge. People were talking about it in cafes, at the beach, and on the popular local radio station KGL. Detective Jenkins and Officer Davis were determined to uncover the truth. They knew that every detail mattered, and that Maureen Zaftrapines was a critical piece of the puzzle. As the investigation into Callie Carter's murder unfolded, the focus shifted to uncovering new evidence that could shed light on the events leading up to her death. Maureen Zaftrapines, a leader of Zen philosophy, initially emerged as a suspect due to her connection with James Carter and the contentious relationship between the Carters. As detectives delved deeper, though, they found that Maureen's alibi was solid, supported by corroborating evidence and witness testimonies. However, while she was not directly implicated in Callie's murder, it became clear that while she had been involved in an affair with James. Nevertheless, a significant revelation emerged during the investigation. Maureen had been blackmailing Callie. Threatening to expose their affair with James, Maureen pressured Callie to abandon her prosecution of Zen philosophy. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case, suggesting a motive rooted in personal vendetta and coercion. The blackmailing scheme exerted immense pressure on Callie, worsening tensions within her marriage and contributing to James's already unstable mental state. The realization that his extramarital affair was at risk of exposure, coupled with the prospect of financial ruin resulting from Callie's intention to leave him, possibly pushed James to a breaking point. The police, armed with this newfound understanding of the circumstances surrounding Callie's murder, intensified their scrutiny of James Carter. His erratic behavior, history of infidelity, and the mounting evidence linking him to the crime scene made him a prime suspect in their eyes. Meanwhile, the revelation of Maureen's blackmailing tactics sent shockwaves through the community, prompting widespread speculation and scrutiny of the Zen philosophy. Galveston's residents grappled with the unsettling realization that their beloved assistant district attorney had been ensnared in a web of deceit and manipulation orchestrated by those closest to her. The third suspect in the investigation was Michael Lawson, an 82-year-old local police officer with a long history in Galveston. Michael had a complicated relationship with Callie Carter. They had dated briefly before she married James, and rumors suggested that his patronage helped her rise quickly to the position of assistant district attorney. Michael had never fully moved on from their relationship and was known to harbor lingering feelings for Callie. On June 14, 2004, detectives decided to bring Michael in for questioning. His advanced age and distinguished career in law enforcement added a layer of complexity to the investigation. Michael arrived at the station in his uniform, carrying himself with the dignity of a seasoned officer, but there was a noticeable tension in his demeanor. Detectives Sarah Jenkins and Mark Davis led the interrogation, keen to understand Michael's potential involvement in the case. They began by asking about his relationship with Callie and his whereabouts on the night of her murder. Michael stated that he had been at home, alone, reading a book about World War II, his favorite historical period. The detectives found his alibi weak and decided to dig deeper. They asked about his feelings for Callie and if he had any contact with her recently. Michael admitted that he still cared for Callie, but denied any recent interactions beyond professional encounters. He appeared calm but evasive when pressed for details, raising suspicions about his true involvement. In addition to questioning Michael, the detectives examined his personal and professional records. They discovered that Michael had a history of becoming overly involved in cases where he had personal connections. This tendency made his proximity to the investigation and his personal history with Callie more troubling. The police also reviewed surveillance footage from the area around Callie's home on the night of the murder, While they did not find clear evidence placing Michael at the scene, his long-standing infatuation with Callie and his erratic behavior in similar past situations kept him on their radar. Throughout the investigation, Michael's colleagues and the community were divided in their opinions. Some viewed him as a dedicated officer who would never harm Callie, while others believed his unresolved feelings could have driven him to a desperate act. As the detectives continued to scrutinize Michael, they knew that they needed solid evidence to either confirm or rule out his involvement. His age and status made the case delicate, but the team remained committed to uncovering the truth behind Callie Carter's tragic death. As the investigation into Callie Carter's murder progressed, the police began to piece together crucial evidence pointing towards the true perpetrator. On June 15, 2004, a breakthrough came when they found incriminating evidence against James Carter, Callie's husband. James, a 36-year-old jobless man, had a troubled past marked by infidelity and erratic behavior. Callie had recently discovered his affair with Maureen Afterpines, which further strained their already tumultuous marriage. Detectives uncovered that Callie had planned to leave James and expose his affair, threatening to cut off his financial support. Faced with the potential ruin of his leisurely lifestyle, James's desperation drove him to a breaking point. Further forensic analysis revealed that James's fingerprints were on the knife used to stab Callie multiple times. Additionally, fibers from his clothing matched those found at the chaotic crime scene. The branding of the letter Z on Callie's body, initially thought to be linked to Maureen's cult, was identified as a desperate attempt by James to divert suspicion towards Xenon philosophy. On the morning of June 16, 2004, under a clear blue Texas sky, the police moved to arrest James at his home, which was also the site of the murder. Detective Sarah Jenkins and Officer Mark Davis approached the house with a sense of urgency and caution. James opened the door, visibly agitated and disheveled. As she and Davis placed him in handcuffs, James's face turned pale, and he protested loudly, but the overwhelming evidence left him with little room for denial. The news of James' arrests sent shockwaves through Galveston. Callie's family, who had been anxiously following the investigation, expressed a mix of relief and sorrow. Callie's mother, Margaret, tearfully thanked the police for their diligent work but lamented the tragic loss of her beloved daughter. The community, already shaken by the murder, grappled with the revelation that the crime was committed by someone so close to Callie. Friends and colleagues of Callie were stunned, finding it hard to reconcile the image of James as the loving husband with the brutal facts of the case. James' arrest marked a critical turning point in the investigation, bringing some closure to a grieving family and community. The focus now shifted to ensuring justice for Callie through the upcoming trial. James Carter's trial for the murder of Callie Carter began on September 1, 2005, in the Galveston County Courthouse. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Linda Ramirez, 45, known for her no-nonsense attitude and sharp legal acumen, presented a compelling case against James. They detailed how his desperate attempt to silence Callie was driven by the fear of exposure and financial ruin. The prosecution's argument relied heavily on the forensic evidence: James' fingerprints on the murder weapon, the matching fibers, and the digital trail of messages and emails between James and Maureen Afterpines. Ramirez painted a vivid picture of a man cornered by his own lies and infidelity, driven to commit an unthinkable act. In contrast, the defense, headed by attorney Ulcer Mitchum, 50, known for his smooth-talking style and high-profile case history, tried to cast doubt on the evidence. Mitchell argued that the investigation was biased from the start, influenced by the community's shock and grief. He suggested that the evidence was circumstantial and that the branding of the letter Z pointed more convincingly towards Zen and philosophy. The trial lasted for 3 intense weeks, with testimonies from forensic experts, character witnesses, and members of Xenon philosophy. The courtroom was filled with residents, journalists, and TV crews from stations like local ABC affiliate KTRK, all eager to witness the unfolding drama. On September 21, 2005, the jury delivered their verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in a mix of relief and tears. James Carter showed little emotion as the verdict was read, his face a mask of resignation. The sentencing hearing followed swiftly. The judge handed down a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, citing the brutality of the crime and the betrayal of trust as key factors in her decision. The verdict and sentencing resonated deeply within the Galveston community. Some felt the punishment was just, reflecting the heinous nature of the crime. Others debated the fairness, given James' apparent lack of remorse, and the complexities of the case. The trial's conclusion brought some closure but also highlighted the deep scars left by the tragedy. Friends and colleagues of Callie continued to mourn her loss while trying to move forward, forever changed by the events that had transpired. In the months following the trial, the community of Galveston slowly began to heal from the tragedy of Callie Carter's murder. Life for many, however, was irrevocably changed. James Carter, now serving a life sentence without parole, faced the grim reality of his actions. In prison, he was known to be a solitary figure, rarely interacting with other inmates. Reports indicated that he spent most of his time in his cell, reflecting on the life he had destroyed. Maureen Zafterpines, the leader of Xenon philosophy, faced intense scrutiny following the trial. Though she was not directly involved in the murder, the revelations about her affair with James and the subsequent blackmailing of Callie tarnished her reputation. Membership dwindled as former followers questioned her teachings and integrity. Maureen stepped down from her leadership position and retreated from public life, leaving the future of the Xenon philosophy uncertain. Michael Lawson, the elderly police officer who had been a suspect, struggled to rebuild his reputation. Despite being cleared of any involvement in the murder, the investigation had taken a toll on his career and personal life. Michael retired from the police force and moved to El Paso, Texas, seeking peace and distance from the painful memories. The case of Callie Carter remained a somber chapter in Galveston's history, but it also served as a reminder of the importance of justice and the impact one person's life can have on a community. Through collective effort and remembrance, Galveston aimed to move forward while honoring Callie's legacy. This is the story of Adam Johnson, a loving husband and father whose life was tragically cut short in a deadly love triangle. Adam Johnson was a 29-year-old man who lived in Alpharetta, Georgia, with his wife Rebecca and their twin boys Modelo and Reno. Adam was an architect who loved designing buildings that were good for the environment. He wanted to help the planet by creating homes and offices that used less energy and were made from sustainable materials. Adam went to Georgia Tech and graduated with a degree in architecture. He was very proud of his education and often talked about how much he learned there. Adam was working on his first major project when he died. This project was very important to him because he believed it would help make the community a better place to live. Adam's dream was to create beautiful buildings that would last a long time and not harm the environment. He wanted his children to grow up in a world where they could enjoy clean air and natural beauty. He often told his friends about his plans and hopes for the future, sharing his vision of a better world. In the days before his death, Adam was very busy but also very excited. He was working late nights and early mornings to make sure his project was perfect. He often talked to his colleagues about new ideas and ways to improve his designs. He even stayed up late reading the latest architecture magazines to stay informed about new trends and technologies. Adam lived in a nice neighborhood in Alpharetta, where people knew each other and felt safe. He liked to jog in the mornings and was often seen at the local Starbucks, where he would get his favorite drink, a caramel macchiato. He also enjoyed watching football games on TV and was a big fan of the Georgia Bulldogs. Adam's personality and dreams made him a special person. He was loved by many and had big plans for the future. His dedication to his work and his family showed how much he cared about making the world a better place. Adam's tragic death was a shock to everyone who knew him, as it ended the life of a man who had so much more to give. On August 15, 2013, at around 9:00 a.m., the body of Adam Johnson was discovered in his home in Alpharetta, Georgia. The person who found him was his neighbor, Josephus Matthews. Josephus often checked in on the Johnson family because they were good friends and lived next door. That morning, Josephus noticed that the front door of the Johnson house was slightly open, which seemed strange. Feeling uneasy, he decided to go inside and see if everything was okay. As Josephus entered the house, he called out Adam's name, but there was no answer. He walked through the hallway and into the living room, where he made a horrific discovery. Adam was blindfolded and tied to a chair, with multiple stab wounds all over his body. The room was a mess with blood on the floor and walls, indicating a violent struggle had taken place. Josephus was in shock and couldn't believe what he was seeing. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone to call 911. The operator answered, and Josephus tried to stay calm as he described what he had found. His voice trembled, but he managed to give the operator all the necessary details. He said, "I'm at my neighbor's house and he's been stabbed. He's tied to a chair, and there's blood everywhere. Please send help quickly." The police arrived at the scene within minutes. They found Josephus standing in the hallway, visibly shaken. The officers asked Josephus to wait outside while they secured the scene. As they moved through the house, they noted the signs of a struggle and the violent nature of the attack. The paramedics arrived soon after the police and confirmed that Adam was dead. Josephus was asked to give a statement about what he had seen and how he had found Adam. He described how he had entered the house, found the body, and immediately called 911. Josephus was still in shock and had a hard time processing what had happened. He kept repeating, "I can't believe this. Adam was such a good man." The news of Adam's death spread quickly through the neighborhood. People were shocked and saddened to hear that such a kind and caring person had been murdered in such a brutal way. The local news stations like WSB-TV began reporting on the crime, and the community was left in a state of fear and disbelief. The discovery of Adam Johnson's body marked the beginning of a tragic and complex investigation. On the morning of August 15, 2013, the Alpharetta police quickly arrived at the scene where Adam Johnson's body was found. Brother and sister police team officers Clarissa Brown and Dean Davis were among the first responders. They were known for their thoroughness and dedication. Officer Brown, a seasoned detective with a calm demeanor, and Officer Davis, a younger but highly observant officer, were both shocked by the brutality of the scene. The crime scene was in Adam's living room. Blood was splattered across the floor and walls, and it was clear that a violent struggle had taken place. Adam was found blindfolded and tied to a chair with multiple stab wounds. The most severe wound was a single fatal stab to the heart. This indicated that the attack was personal and not a random act of violence. The detectives began their investigation by securing the crime scene and making sure no evidence was disturbed. They used yellow crime scene tape to cordon off the area and started taking photographs of the scene from every angle. They collected samples of the blood found at the scene, hoping to find DNA evidence that could lead them to the killer. Officer Brown noticed a partially burned note in the fireplace. She carefully retrieved it with tweezers and placed it in an evidence bag. The note appeared to be a letter from Adam, expressing his intention to leave his wife Rebecca and take custody of their children. This piece of evidence suggested a possible motive for the crime. The detectives also used luminol to check for any hidden bloodstains. Luminol is a chemical that glows when it comes into contact with blood, even if the blood has been cleaned up. They found more bloodstains leading from the living room to the kitchen, indicating that the struggle might have started there. Officer Davis checked the doors and windows for signs of forced entry, but found none. This suggested that Adam knew his attacker and had let them into the house willingly. The police also dusted for fingerprints and collected any that they found, hoping to match them to a suspect. The police worked tirelessly to gather all possible evidence. They interviewed neighbors, including Josephus Matthews, who had discovered the body. Josephus described Adam as a friendly and caring person who had no known enemies. This made the crime even more puzzling. As the day turned into night, the police continued their investigation, determined to find justice for Adam Johnson. The crime scene was gruesome, and the detectives knew they had a tough case ahead. They hoped the evidence they gathered would lead them to the person responsible for this horrific crime. Rebecca Johnson, Adam's 27-year-old wife, was the first suspect in the investigation. Rebecca was known for being creative and outgoing, with a vibrant social life. However, her relationship with Adam had been strained for some time. Friends and family mentioned that she seemed unhappy and distant, and rumors about her having an affair were common. Rebecca was a part-time artist who enjoyed painting and attending local art events. Raised Methodist, she was also recently involved with a group called Zen and Philosophy. This group claimed to be a spiritual community, with its teachings based on the 1999 Disney Channel original movies and a girl of the 21st century. Others simply called it a cult. Well, we'll let you decide.
Hello, I am Maureen Zaftrapines, agent of Lady Zin and Car. Today I invite you to explore Xenon philosophy, a futuristic vision, and a prophecy of humanity's evolution towards cosmic enlightenment. Through chanting of Lord Protozo's sacred lyrics, we attune our souls to the cosmic frequencies, preparing ourselves for the journey towards higher realms of existence. Our sacred branding of the letter Z symbolizes our commitment to Xenon philosophy as we embark on the path of spiritual enlightenment. We are not just individuals, but a cosmic community united by our shared vision. As we journey towards the stars, let us embrace the teachings of the Xenon philosophy, for within its wisdom lies the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe and the boundless potential of our souls. May the light of Lady Xenon guide us on our cosmic voyage. Cetus Lupidus.
Anyway, Rebecca's sudden interest in Xenon philosophy worried her friends and family. They felt she was becoming more withdrawn and influenced by the group's teachings. When the police questioned Rebecca, she appeared anxious and evasive. She admitted that her marriage to Adam was troubled and confessed to having an affair with Jimmy Lewis Carter, a 23-year-old ex-football player at Georgia Tech. Rebecca explained that she met Jimmy through Xenon philosophy and that they had become close. She bluntly said Jimmy was much better in bed than her husband. Despite this admission, Rebecca denied any involvement in Adam's murder. During the interrogation, Rebecca's nervousness was evident. She fidgeted with her hands and avoided eye contact with the detectives. Officer Brown asked Rebecca about the night of the murder, but her answers were vague and inconsistent. Rebecca claimed she was at home alone, which the police found suspicious given the nature of her relationship with Adam. The detectives also questioned Rebecca about the partially burned note found in the fireplace. The note indicated that Adam planned to leave her and take their children, Modelo and Reno. When asked about this, Rebecca became visibly upset and started to cry. She insisted that she did not know about Adam's plans and that she would never harm him. The police searched Rebecca's phone and computer, looking for any clues. They found numerous text messages between her and Jimmy, discussing their relationship and their dissatisfaction with their current lives. However, there was no direct evidence linking Rebecca to the murder. Rebecca's involvement with Xenon philosophy also raised questions. The group had a reputation for encouraging extreme behavior among its members. The detectives wondered if the group's influence had played a role in Adam's death. They decided to investigate further, looking into the activities and teachings of Xenon philosophy. Despite her nervous demeanor and inconsistent statements, there was not enough concrete evidence to arrest Rebecca at that time. The police continued to investigate other leads and suspects, hoping to find the truth behind Adam Johnson's tragic death. Jimmy Lewis Carter, a 23-year-old ex-football player at Georgia Tech, was the second suspect in Adam Johnson's murder case. Known for his charisma and athleticism, Jimmy had a history of short-term relationships. He was identified as Rebecca Johnson's lover and was the one who introduced her to the Xenon philosophy group. This group, often considered a cult, had a significant influence on both Rebecca and Jimmy. When the police brought Jimmy in for questioning, he appeared calm and confident. His relaxed demeanor contrasted sharply with the serious nature of the investigation. Detective Clarissa Brown and Officer Dean Davis conducted the interview, hoping to learn more about his relationship with Rebecca and his possible involvement in Adam's death. Jimmy was cooperative and answered all the questions without hesitation. He admitted to having an affair with Rebecca and confirmed that they met through Xenon philosophy. Jimmy described Rebecca as someone who was unhappy in her marriage and looking for something more in life. He claimed that their relationship was purely emotional and physical, with no intention of causing harm to anyone. Detective Brown asked Jimmy about his whereabouts on the night of August 14, 2013. Jimmy confidently stated that he was with a friend at a local Longhorn steakhouse and provided the names of several friends who could confirm his alibi. The police followed up on this information and found that his alibi checked out. Jimmy was indeed at practice, far from the scene of the crime. Despite his solid alibi, the detectives pressed Jimmy further, trying to uncover any additional information. They asked him about Xenon philosophy and its influence on him and Rebecca. Jimmy explained that Xenon philosophy was about finding inner peace and spiritual enlightenment. He denied that the group had any radical or violent teachings. The detectives also asked Jimmy about the text messages between him and Rebecca. The messages showed their dissatisfaction with their current lives and hinted at plans for the future. Jimmy explained that they were just talking about their dreams and aspirations, not planning anything harmful. Throughout the interrogation, Jimmy remained composed and dismissive of the police's suspicions. He showed no signs of guilt or nervousness, which made the detectives wonder if he was telling the truth or just a very good liar. However, without concrete evidence linking him to the crime, they had no choice but to let him go. As Jimmy left the police station, the detectives continued to feel uneasy. His confidence and cooperation were unusual for someone under suspicion of such a serious crime. While they could not detain him, Jimmy remained a person of interest in the investigation. The police continued to gather evidence, hoping to find the truth behind Adam Johnson's tragic death. On August 20, 2013, 5 days after Adam Johnson's body was found, the Alpharetta police received a crucial tip. It was a hot, humid afternoon when a local resident called the station. She had found something suspicious while walking her dog, Michael Cartino Winchester, in a nearby park. The park was a popular spot in Alpharetta, known for its scenic trails and family-friendly atmosphere. Emma described finding a bloody knife hidden under some bushes near the edge of the park. The knife seemed out of place, and she immediately thought it might be connected to Adam's murder. Officer Dean Davis and Detective Clarissa Brown rushed to the park to investigate the tip. They arrived at the scene and carefully retrieved the knife, placing it in an evidence bag to avoid contamination. Back at the police station, forensic experts examined the knife. They discovered traces of Adam's blood on the blade and a partial fingerprint on the handle. The fingerprint was sent to the lab for analysis. The detectives hoped it would match someone in their database or one of their suspects. The discovery of the knife was a significant breakthrough in the case. The police felt a renewed sense of urgency as they waited for the lab results. 2 days later, on August 22, the lab results came back. The fingerprint on the knife matched Karen Blanchard, Rebecca Johnson's best friend, and a member of Xenon Philosophy. Karen was known for her aggressive behavior and strong loyalty to Rebecca. The police immediately brought her in for questioning. The discovery of the knife and the fingerprint evidence put Karen under intense scrutiny. The police believed they were closer to solving the case, but they needed more information to piece everything together. They continued to investigate Karen's involvement, hoping to uncover the full truth behind Adam Johnson's murder. Karen Blanchard, Rebecca Johnson's best friend, became a primary suspect after her fingerprint was found on the knife used to kill Adam Johnson. Karen, a 28-year-old with a history of aggressive behavior, was fiercely protective of Rebecca. She was also an ex-lover of Jimmy Lewis Carter and a member of Xenon Philosophy. On August 22, 2013, after the fingerprint analysis, Detective Clarissa Brown and Officer Dean Davis brought Karen in for questioning. Karen, known for her strong-willed personality, initially tried to maintain her composure. However, the evidence against her was mounting, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth. During the interrogation, Karen admitted to having sex with Rebecca but denied any involvement in Adam's murder. She claimed that the knife must have been planted to frame her. Detective Brown, with her calm and methodical approach, pressed Karen for more details about her activities on the night of August 14. Karen's story was inconsistent. She initially claimed to be at home alone, but later admitted to meeting with Rebecca and Jimmy. She described the meeting as a casual get-together, insisting they only discussed their frustrations with their current lives. However, the detectives were skeptical, especially given her strong loyalty to Rebecca and the presence of her fingerprint on the murder weapon. Karen's involvement with Xenon Philosophy also raised red flags. The group, often viewed as a cult, had a reputation for promoting extreme loyalty among its members. Detective Brown asked Karen if the group had influenced her actions, but Karen vehemently denied it, saying Xenon Philosophy was about finding inner peace, not violence. As the questioning continued, Karen became more agitated. Her defensive behavior only increased the detective's suspicions. Officer Davis, known for his sharp observational skills, noticed Karen's hands trembling slightly, a sign of her growing anxiety. The police also searched Karen's home, looking for any additional evidence. They found several items linking her to Rebecca and Jimmy, including text messages and meeting notes related to Xenon Philosophy. While these items did not directly implicate Karen in the murder, they showed the close connection between the three suspects. Despite Karen's denials, the evidence against her was compelling. The fingerprint on the knife, her inconsistent alibi, and her aggressive loyalty to Rebecca all pointed to her potential involvement in Adam's death. The detectives believed Karen knew more than she was willing to admit and continued to apply pressure, hoping she would crack under the weight of the evidence. The investigation into Karen Blanchard was a crucial step in solving the case. The police were closer than ever to uncovering the full story behind Adam Johnson's tragic death, but they needed to keep pushing to find the final piece of the puzzle. On August 25, 2013, after a thorough investigation, the police finally identified the murderer, Rebecca Johnson. The breakthrough came when detectives uncovered a series of deleted text messages on Rebecca's phone. These messages, recovered by forensic experts, revealed her desperation and fear of losing her children. Adam had discovered her affairs with Jimmy and Karen and planned to leave her, taking custody of their children, Modelo and Reno, because he did not want them to be raised in Xenon Philosophy. On the night of August 14, Rebecca had confronted Adam about his plans to leave. A heated argument ensued, escalating into a violent struggle. In a fit of rage and desperation, Rebecca blindfolded Adam, tied him to a chair, and stabbed him multiple times, delivering a fatal wound to his heart. She then attempted to stage the scene to look like a home invasion gone wrong. Detective Clarissa Brown and Officer Dean Davis pieced together the timeline of events from the recovered messages and other evidence. They presented their findings to the district attorney, who issued a warrant for Rebecca's arrest. On the morning of August 26, the police arrived at Rebecca's home. It was a tense moment as they knocked on the door. Rebecca answered, appearing calm but visibly nervous. The officers informed Rebecca of the charges against her and placed her under arrest. She was shocked and initially denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. As she was led away in handcuffs, her neighbors watched in disbelief. The once vibrant and outgoing woman was now at the center of a horrific crime. Rebecca's arrest brought a mix of emotions to the community. Adam's family, devastated by his loss, felt a sense of relief knowing the murderer had been caught. However, the revelation that Rebecca was responsible for his death added another layer of pain. Rebecca's children, Modelo and Reno, were taken into the care of Adam's parents. The community rallied around the family, offering support during this difficult time. The local news stations covered the arrest, highlighting the tragic turn of events. The investigation had been long and complex, but the dedication of Detective Brown, Officer Davis, and their colleagues ensured that justice was served. The evidence, combined with Rebecca's actions and the recovered messages, painted a clear picture of her guilt. Rebecca's arrest marked the end of a dark chapter in Alpharetta. The community hoped for healing and justice for Adam Johnson and his family. Rebecca Johnson's trial for the murder of her husband Adam began on November 15, 2013, in the Fulton County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters from local news stations like WSB-TV and concerned residents of Alpharetta. The trial drew significant attention due to the shocking details of the case. The prosecution, led by District Attorney James Morgan, age 45, presented a compelling argument. Known for his thorough and determined approach, Morgan meticulously laid out the evidence against Rebecca. He detailed the affair with Jimmy Lewis Carter, her involvement with Karen Blanchard, and the influence of Xenon philosophy. He highlighted the recovered text messages, the forensic evidence, and the violent nature of Adam's murder. The defense, led by attorney Laura Simmons, age 38, attempted to paint a different picture. Simmons, known for her empathetic yet assertive style, argued that Rebecca was a victim of emotional abuse and manipulation. She claimed that Rebecca acted in self-defense and that her involvement with Xenon philosophy had clouded her judgment. Simmons tried to cast doubt on the prosecution's timeline and the reliability of the recovered messages. Throughout the trial, Adam's family sat in the courtroom, visibly distressed by the proceedings. Jane and Robert Johnson, Adam's parents, watched every detail unfold with a mix of sorrow and anger. Their presence reminded everyone of the human cost of the crime. The jury deliberated for 2 days before reaching a verdict. On December 2, 2013, they found Rebecca Johnson guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Rebecca showed little emotion, staring blankly ahead. During sentencing, the judge addressed the court. She emphasized the gravity of the crime and the impact on Adam's family and the community. This was a senseless act driven by fear and desperation, she said. Rebecca was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rebecca's conviction and sentencing were seen as a fair resolution by most, though some felt sympathy for her, considering the emotional turmoil she had been experiencing. The trial's outcome provided a measure of justice for Adam Johnson and his family, allowing them to begin the long process of healing. After Rebecca Johnson was sentenced to life in prison without parole, the lives of those involved in the case changed drastically. Adam Johnson's family, still grappling with their loss, tried to find a new sense of normalcy. Jane and Robert Johnson, Adam's parents, took in their grandchildren, Modelo and Reno. The children, now under their grandparents' care, slowly adjusted to their new life. The Johnsons received overwhelming support from the Alpharetta community. Local groups and neighbors organized fundraisers and events to help the family. Rebecca's incarceration left a void in the lives of her children. Despite the severity of her crime, they were allowed occasional supervised visits to the prison, arranged by Child Welfare Services. These visits were emotionally challenging, as the children struggled to understand why their mother was behind bars. Jane and Robert Johnson did their best to provide a stable, loving environment for Modelo and Reno, shielding them from the media frenzy surrounding the case. Jimmy Lewis Carter, Rebecca's lover and a central figure in the investigation, faced his own set of challenges. The media attention affected his football career at Georgia Tech. Although he was not charged with any crime, his involvement with Rebecca and Zin on philosophy raised questions about his character. Jimmy decided to leave Georgia Tech and transferred to a smaller university to escape the scrutiny and rebuild his life. Karen Blanchard, Rebecca's best friend, also faced public backlash. Her aggressive defense of Rebecca and her involvement in the Zin on philosophy group made her a controversial figure. After the trial, Karen distanced herself from the group and sought therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. She moved to a different state, hoping for a fresh start away from the memories of the case. Life after the trial was a period of adjustment and healing for everyone involved. While the pain of Adam Johnson's death could never be erased, his family and the community worked together to honor his memory and move forward. The story of Adam Johnson and the tragic events of August 2013 left an indelible dent on Alpharetta, reminding all of the importance of justice and community support in the face of tragedy. Leah Brewster was a 40-year-old woman known for her creative talents and big heart. She lived in a cozy house in a friendly neighborhood in Austin, Texas. Leah worked as an interior designer, using her keen eye for detail to transform homes and businesses into beautiful spaces. She had a degree in interior design from the University of Texas at Austin, where she was an active member of the Student Art Society. Leah was not just talented, she was also very caring. She often volunteered at local shelters like the Austin Animal Center and organized community events. For instance, she was a key figure in setting up the annual spring fair at the local park, where families enjoyed food, games, and live music. Her friends described her as the heart of their group, always the one to plan get-togethers and make everyone feel welcome. She had a close-knit group of friends who often met up for brunch at popular spots like Kirby Lane Cafe. At home, Leah was the glue that held her family together. She was married to Bobby Dean Brewster, an accountant, and they had an 18-year-old son named Caleb. Leah and Caleb were particularly close, often spending weekends together hiking in the Barton Creek Greenbelt or watching Marvel movies. In the days before her death, Leah was very busy but also very excited. She was planning a big community fundraiser for the local homeless shelter. She spent hours designing posters and flyers, and she even managed to get a local radio station, QDX, to promote the event. Leah also had dreams of expanding her interior design business. She was in talks with a local magazine, Austin Monthly, to feature some of her work. Her future seemed bright, and she was looking forward to all the possibilities. Leah's personality was warm and generous. She was the type of person who would go out of her way to help a friend in need or to make a stranger feel welcome. Her friends and family knew her as a selfless, loving person who always put others first. But her tragic death would leave a deep void in the hearts of those who knew her. On the morning of March 12, 2018, the usually quiet neighborhood in Austin, Texas, was shattered by a gruesome discovery. At around 8:30 a.m., Leah Brewster's neighbor, Liesl Gonzalez Chan, decided to drop off some homemade tamales. Liesl and Leah often exchanged baked goods and shared morning coffee. As Liesl approached Leah's front door, she noticed it was slightly ajar. Thinking nothing of it, she knocked and called out Leah's name, but got no response. Concerned, Liesl stepped inside. She walked through the hallway, calling for Leah. As she entered the kitchen, she was met with a horrifying sight. Leah was lying on the floor in a pool of blood, motionless. The kitchen, usually spotless and filled with the smell of Leah's cooking, was in complete disarray. Liesl froze in shock, her mind struggling to process the scene in front of her. After a few moments, Liesl snapped out of her daze and fumbled for her phone. Her hands trembled as she dialed 911. The operator, sensing her distress, tried to calm her down and asked her to describe what she saw. Liesl's voice shook as she explained that her friend was lying on the kitchen floor and wasn't moving. The operator assured her that help was on the way and instructed her to wait outside until the police arrived. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air, and 2 police cars pulled up to the house. Officers quickly secured the area and entered the home. Liesl, still in a state of shock, was gently led away by a kind officer who asked her to sit down and take deep breaths. She was offered a blanket and a bottle of water as she tried to calm down. As news of the discovery spread, neighbors gathered outside, whispering and speculating about what had happened. The local news station, KXAN, soon arrived, and reporters began setting up their cameras. The neighborhood was buzzing with fear and curiosity, as everyone wondered how such a tragedy could occur in their peaceful community. Leah Brewster's body was carefully examined by the first responders. They confirmed she had been stabbed multiple times with a kitchen knife, which lay beside her. The brutality of the crime shocked everyone present. Liesl, still trying to comprehend the horror she had witnessed, provided a statement to the police. She described Leah as a wonderful person and expressed her disbelief that something so terrible could happen to someone so kind and loving. In the following hours, forensic teams arrived to start their investigation, marking the beginning of a long and complex case that would uncover dark secrets and hidden motives. The police arrived quickly at Leah Brewster's house on the morning of March 12, 2018, after Liesl Gonzalez-Chan's frantic 911 call. Officers Joseph Costella and Ithiel Rivera were the first on the scene. Arriving within minutes, they were experienced detectives with the Austin Police Department, known for their dedication and sharp investigative skills. As the officers entered the house, they were struck by the chaotic scene in the kitchen. The normally tidy room was in complete disarray, with broken dishes on the floor and blood splattered across the counters and walls. Leah Brewster lay on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood, with a kitchen knife nearby. It was clear that she had been stabbed multiple times, and the brutality of the attack was evident. Detective Costella, a tall man with a stern expression, immediately began assessing the scene, while Detective Rivera, known for her keen attention to detail, started documenting everything with her camera. They carefully examined the area around Leah's body, noting the signs of a struggle. The kitchen table was overturned, and a chair was broken, indicating that Leah had fought hard against her attacker. The detectives called in the forensic team, who arrived shortly after. The team used advanced tools to gather evidence, including swabs for DNA, fingerprint dusting kits, and high-resolution cameras to capture every detail. They meticulously collected samples of blood and other potential evidence, hoping to find clues that would lead them to the murderer. Detective Rivera noticed a set of muddy footprints leading from the back door into the kitchen. She pointed this out to the forensic team, who took detailed photographs and measurements. The footprints suggested that the killer had entered the house through the back, possibly trying to avoid detection. Detectives Costella and Rivera continued to work late into the night, reviewing the evidence and planning their next steps. They knew that solving Leah's murder would require thorough investigation and attention to every detail. The scene in Leah Brewster's kitchen was a puzzle they were determined to solve, piece by piece, to bring justice for Leah and her grieving family. The first suspect in the investigation was Caleb Brewster, Leah and Bobby Dean's 18-year-old son. Caleb was a high school senior with a bright future ahead of him. He was a popular student at Austin High School, known for his talent in basketball and his ambition to study engineering in college. His teachers spoke highly of his intelligence and dedication, and he had already received several scholarship offers. Caleb had a complicated relationship with his father but was very close to his mother. Leah was his biggest supporter, attending all his basketball games and helping him with college applications. However, there was a secret Caleb had been hiding. He was involved in a sexual relationship with his high school English teacher, Laura McMasters. Leah had just recently discovered this relationship before her death, which caused tension in the household. When detectives Joseph Costella and Ithiel Rivera brought Caleb in for questioning, he appeared nervous but cooperative. He admitted to the relationship with Laura McMasters, explaining that they had grown close over the past year. He described Laura as supportive and understanding, someone he could confide in about his struggles at home and school. The detectives asked Caleb about the night of his mother's murder. He claimed he was at a friend's house studying for an upcoming exam. His friend, Jason Kim, confirmed Caleb's alibi, saying they had been working on a physics project together until late in the evening. However, the detectives were not entirely convinced and continued to press Caleb for more details. Caleb's nervousness grew as the interrogation continued. Detective Rivera, known for her empathetic approach, asked Caleb about his feelings towards his parents, especially after Leah discovered his sexual relationship with Laura. Caleb admitted that his mother's reaction had been harsh, and they had argued about it. He felt guilty for causing his mother distress, but insisted he had no reason to harm her. The police found explicit text messages on Caleb's phone between him and Laura McMasters, discussing their sexual relationship and Leah's disapproval. The messages revealed a deep bond between them and their fears about the future. Caleb expressed his frustration with his parents, but never hinted at any violent intentions. Despite his alibi, the police considered Caleb a person of interest. His sexual relationship with Laura McMasters and the tension at home provided potential motives. The detectives decided to keep a close eye on Caleb, reviewing his social media and phone records for any additional clues. Caleb's friends and teachers were shocked to hear about the investigation. They described him as a bright, ambitious young man with a promising future. The community couldn't believe that someone like Caleb could be involved in such a tragic event. The detectives, however, knew that appearances could be deceiving and continued to scrutinize every aspect of Caleb's life for answers. The second suspect in Leah Brewster's murder investigation was her husband, Bobby Dean Brewster. At 45 years old, Bobby Dean was known for his meticulous and highly organized nature. He worked as an accountant at a well-known local firm, and his colleagues described him as dependable but somewhat reserved. Bobby Dean was perceived as a dedicated family man, though his quiet demeanor often made him seem distant. During the interrogation, Bobby Dean was initially calm and cooperative. He provided a detailed account of his activities on the night of Leah's murder. He claimed he had been at home, watching a basketball game on ESPN and then going to bed early. However, his calmness began to waver as detectives pressed him on his relationship with Leah. The detectives, Joseph Costella and Ithiel Rivera, noticed signs of strain in Bobby Dean's demeanor when they mentioned Leah's recent discovery of Caleb's secret relationship with his high school English teacher, Laura McMasters. Bobby Dean shifted in his seat, and his responses became more defensive. He admitted that the news had caused tension in the family, but he insisted that he had nothing to do with Leah's death. As the questioning continued, it was revealed that Leah had also discovered something else that could serve as a motive. Leah had found out about Bobby Dean's own affair with Laura McMasters. This revelation had caused a significant rift between Leah and Bobby Dean. Leah's diary entries, which the police found, detailed her heartbreak and anger over her husband's betrayal. Bobby Dean's short temper was another point of interest for the investigators. Friends and family members noted that while he was usually composed, he could become very angry when provoked. Detectives Costella and Rivera questioned Bobby Dean about his temper and whether it had ever led to violence. Bobby Dean denied ever hurting Leah, but the detectives were not convinced. To gather more information, the police interviewed Bobby Dean's co-workers and neighbors. They described him as a man who kept to himself and rarely socialized. Some co-workers mentioned noticing changes in his behavior in the weeks leading up to Leah's murder. He seemed more stressed and distracted at work, often making mistakes in his otherwise flawless accounting records. Despite Bobby Dean's insistence on his innocence, the detectives felt they had enough reason to keep him under close watch. They continued to dig into his background, looking for any additional evidence that could link him to the crime. As the investigation unfolded, Bobby Dean remained a key suspect, his calm exterior masking the potential for deeper, darker motives. The police's thorough interrogation and evidence-gathering process aimed to uncover the truth behind Leah Brewster's tragic death, and Bobby Dean's actions and responses during the investigation only intensified their suspicions. The third suspect in the investigation was Laura McMasters, a 55-year-old high school English teacher at Caleb's High School. Laura was well-liked by her students and colleagues, known for her passion for literature and her dedication to helping students succeed. She often stayed late to assist with assignments and had a reputation for being empathetic and approachable. Laura's involvement with Caleb Brewster came to light during the investigation. The relationship was quite the scandal given their age difference and her position as his teacher. Detectives Joseph Costella and Ithiel Rivera brought Laura in for questioning at the Austin Police Department. Laura arrived looking composed but clearly nervous about the situation. During the interrogation, Laura admitted to the sexual relationship with Caleb. She explained that it had started innocently, with her offering extra help after school, but had quickly developed into something sexual. Laura described her connection with Caleb as, quote, beautiful, stating that she cared deeply for him and wanted to support him through his family struggles. The detectives pressed Laura about her whereabouts on the night of Leah Brewster's murder. Laura claimed she was at home grading papers and preparing lesson plans for the upcoming week. She had no alibi, as she lived alone, and there were no witnesses to corroborate her story. This raised suspicions, and the detectives continued to probe. Laura's phone records showed numerous sexually explicit texts and naked pictures exchanged between her and Caleb, especially in the days leading up to Leah's death. The messages revealed their concerns about Leah discovering their relationship and the potential consequences. However, there was no direct evidence linking Laura to the murder. Detective Rivera, using her empathetic approach, asked Laura about her feelings towards Leah. Laura admitted that Leah's discovery of the relationship had caused significant tension. Leah had confronted Laura in her classroom, demanding she end the relationship with Caleb immediately. Laura described the confrontation as heated but insisted she had no intention of harming Leah or of ending the relationship. Despite her calm demeanor, the detectives sensed that Laura was hiding something. They searched her home, looking for any evidence that might connect her to the crime. They found nothing incriminating, but Laura remained a key suspect due to her close involvement with Caleb and the conflict with Leah. Laura's colleagues were shocked by the news. They described her as a dedicated and caring teacher, someone who went above and beyond for her students. The revelation of her sexual relationship with Caleb was hard for them to believe, and the idea that she could be involved in Leah's murder was even more difficult to grasp. As the investigation continued, Laura's life was turned upside down. The scrutiny from the police, the media, and the community weighed heavily on her. She maintained her innocence, cooperating with the authorities while trying to navigate the fallout from the scandal. The detectives kept Laura under close observation, searching for any slip-up or new evidence that could shed light on Leah Brewster's tragic death. On the afternoon of March 16, 2018, a breakthrough in the case came when new evidence was discovered. It was a warm, sunny day in Austin, and the police received a call from a local gardener who had been working in a nearby park, Zilker Metropolitan Park, when he stumbled upon a blood-stained glove hidden behind some bushes near the park's edge. He immediately contacted the Austin Police Department, and officers arrived at the scene within minutes. Detectives Joseph Costella and Ithiel Rivera, who were leading the investigation, rushed to the park. They carefully retrieved the glove, making sure not to contaminate any potential evidence. The glove was sent to the forensic lab for analysis, and the area around the park was thoroughly searched for additional clues. The forensic team worked quickly, and the results came back later that evening. The blood on the glove matched Leah Brewster's, and there were traces of another substance inside the glove that could be DNA from the suspect. This discovery gave the detectives a renewed sense of urgency. They now had a tangible piece of evidence that could potentially link someone to the crime scene. Detective Rivera reviewed surveillance footage from around the park, hoping to spot anyone who might have been acting suspiciously on the day of Leah's murder. The footage revealed a figure wearing a dark hoodie, walking hurriedly away from the park around the time the murder was believed to have occurred. The person's face was not clearly visible, but the footage provided a lead. Further analysis of the glove's DNA revealed it matched Bobby Dean Brewster. The detectives were now more convinced than ever that he was involved in his wife's murder. They decided to bring him in for further questioning, armed with this new piece of evidence. During the second interrogation, Bobby Dean's calm demeanor began to crack. When confronted with the DNA evidence, he became defensive and evasive. He couldn't provide a satisfactory explanation for how his DNA ended up in a blood-stained glove found near the crime scene. The detectives pressed him harder, and his story started to fall apart. Meanwhile, the forensic team continued to search for additional evidence. They discovered a partial fingerprint on the handle of the kitchen knife used in the murder. This fingerprint also matched Bobby Dean's, strengthening the case against him. The discovery of the glove and the matching DNA and fingerprint evidence were pivotal in the investigation. The detectives now had enough to move forward with their case against Bobby Dean. They continued to gather more evidence, preparing to make an arrest and bring justice for Leah Brewster. The new evidence brought a sense of relief to the community, who had been on edge since Leah's tragic death. It also gave Leah's family hope that the person responsible for her murder would finally be held accountable. On March 18, 2018, armed with crucial evidence, the police were ready to make their move. Bobby Dean Brewster, 45, an accountant by profession, had become their primary suspect. Known for his meticulous and organized nature, Bobby Dean's life seemed orderly from the outside, but inside he was battling jealousy and rage. The investigation revealed that Bobby Dean had discovered his son Caleb's secret relationship with Laura McMasters, the English teacher. This revelation angered him, but what infuriated him more was Leah's discovery of his own affair with Laura. Driven by jealousy and rage, Bobby Dean had initially planned to confront Caleb, his love rival. However, when Leah entered the room where he was waiting, his anger redirected toward her. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, he grabbed the kitchen knife and stabbed Leah to death. Detectives Joseph Costella and Ithiel Rivera, who had been leading the investigation, arrived at Bobby Dean's office early that morning. They had an arrest warrant and the evidence needed to take him into custody. Bobby Dean was taken by surprise as the detectives entered his office and informed him of the charges. His calm exterior shattered, and he became visibly agitated. Bobby Dean was handcuffed and escorted out of his office, past shocked colleagues. His arrest made headlines, with local news stations covering the story. The community was stunned, and the news spread quickly through social media. Leah's family had mixed emotions about Bobby Dean's arrest. They were relieved that the person responsible for Leah's death was caught, but they were also devastated that it was someone so close to them. Leah's sister, Samantha, expressed her sorrow and anger in an interview, stating that she felt betrayed by Bobby Dean, whom she had trusted. As Bobby Dean was led away by the police, his reaction was a mix of shock and resignation. He didn't resist the arrest, knowing the weight of the evidence against him. The detectives took him to the Austin Police Department for booking, where he was processed and placed in a holding cell. The evidence, including the blood-stained glove with Bobby Dean's DNA, the surveillance footage, and the partial fingerprint on the knife, were crucial in solving the case. The detectives' relentless pursuit of justice ensured that Leah Brewster's killer was held accountable. The arrest marked a significant step towards justice for Leah's family, providing them with some solace amid their grief. The community rallied around them, offering support and condolences as they began to process the tragic events. The trial of Bobby Dean Brewster began on July 10, 2018, at the Travis County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed with reporters from KVUE, the Austin American-Statesman, and other media outlets. The community watched closely as the proceedings unfolded. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Sarah Bynading, a 42-year-old with a reputation for being tough and tenacious. Bynading laid out the case against Bobby Dean with meticulous detail. She presented the blood-stained glove, the partial fingerprint on the knife, and the DNA evidence linking Bobby Dean to the crime. She argued that Bobby Dean's jealousy and rage led him to murder his wife, Leah Brewster, in a fit of uncontrolled anger. On the defense side was attorney Michael Grove Basado, a 50-year-old known for his calm demeanor and persuasive arguments. Grove Basado contended that the evidence was circumstantial and that there was no clear motive for Bobby Dean to kill his wife. He tried to cast doubt on the reliability of the forensic evidence and suggested that someone else could have been responsible for Leah's death. Throughout the trial, Leah's family sat in the front row, their faces a mixture of sadness and determination. Her sister often wiped away tears as she listened to the testimonies and evidence presented. The community's support was palpable, with many residents showing up to the courthouse to stand by Leah's family. Caleb Brewster, now a college freshman, also attended the trial. He had to relive the painful memories of his mother's death and the shocking revelation of his father's affair with his teacher, Laura McMasters. Laura herself testified, admitting to the relationship with both Bobby Dean and Caleb, but maintaining her innocence regarding the murder. The jury deliberated for 3 days. On July 25, 2018, they returned with a verdict. Bobby Dean Brewster was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Bobby Dean showed little emotion, staring straight ahead as his fate was sealed. The sentencing took place on August 1, 2018. The judge sentenced Bobby Dean to just 15 years in prison. The sentence was met with mixed reactions. Leah's family felt some relief that justice had been served, but the pain of losing Leah was still raw. Samantha expressed her hope that Bobby Dean would reflect on his actions and the damage he had caused. The community had a similar response. Some felt the sentence was too lenient, given the brutal nature of the crime. Others believed it was fair, considering Bobby Dean's previously clean record and the complex emotions involved. Bobby Dean's conviction and sentencing marked the end of a painful chapter for Leah's family and the Austin community. The trial had exposed deep wounds and secrets, but it also brought a measure of justice for Leah Brewster's untimely death. The family and community now faced the challenge of healing and moving forward from this tragedy. After the trial, life in Austin slowly returned to normal, but the impact of Leah Brewster's murder lingered. Leah's family, particularly her sister Samantha, faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives. Samantha became a vocal advocate for domestic violence awareness, partnering with local organizations like Safe Austin to educate others and provide support to victims. Caleb Brewster, deeply affected by the loss of his mother and the scandal surrounding his father's actions, struggled to find his footing. He decided to transfer to a college out of state, seeking a fresh start away from the painful memories. Caleb focused on his studies in basketball, finding solace in the sport his mother had always supported him in. Laura McMasters continued her teaching position at Austin High School despite the scandal tarnishing her reputation. she faced harsh judgment from the community. In fact, Laura won an award in 2020 for the success in teaching students during the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite her success as a teacher, the stigma of the affair and her involvement in the case continued to follow her. The Brewster home, once a symbol of the happy family, stood empty for several months before being sold. The new owners, aware of the tragic history, sought to bring new life to the house. They renovated and invited the community to a housewarming, symbolizing a fresh start and the healing power of community support. Bobby Dean Brewster, now serving his sentence, had time to reflect on his actions. The prison system offered counseling and rehabilitation programs, which he participated in, hoping to understand and atone for his crimes. His relationship with Caleb remained strained, but there was hope that time and reflection might lead to reconciliation. The trial and its aftermath had left an indelible mark on everyone involved. Leah Brewster's legacy lived on through the positive changes and awareness her tragic death inspired. The community of Austin learned to come together, supporting one another and working towards a future where such tragedies could be prevented. Tom Princely, 52 years old, was the well-respected principal of Lexington Christian Academy, a small private school in the heart of Kentucky's affluent suburban neighborhoods. Known for his unwavering dedication to both his work and the community, Tom had a reputation for fairness, kindness, and a passion for education. His love for restoring historic homes was more than a hobby. It was a calling. Over the years, he had meticulously restored several of the area's grand old houses, breathing new life into the historic architecture of Lexington. Tom was married to his second wife, Olive Princely, after a bitter divorce from his first wife, whose criminal activities as a drug dealer selling prescription drugs to other soccer moms had brought shame and scandal to the family. Despite this rocky past, Tom had worked hard to rebuild his life, focusing on his two children from his first marriage, Martin, 21, and Bree, 18. However, Tom's professional success came at a personal cost. He was often absorbed in his work, spending long hours at the school and on restoration projects. This dedication made him a somewhat distant husband and father, leaving Olive feeling neglected and unloved. Yet beneath this busy exterior, Tom was unaware of the storm brewing within his own home. Olive, feeling increasingly bored and resentful of Tom's emotional distance, had started a secret affair with his son Martin. This illicit sexual relationship had grown into a dangerous obsession, leaving Olive down a dark path. In the days leading up to his death in early April 2017, the seemingly perfect life Tom had built was about to come crashing down, shattering the peace of the quiet neighborhood he had worked so hard to be a part of. On the morning of April 5, 2017, the quiet suburban neighborhood of Lexington, Kentucky, was shaken by a grim discovery. At around 7:30 a.m., Bree Princely, Tom's 18-year-old daughter, returned home after spending the night at a friend's house. Bree had been out late studying for a big exam at Henry Clay High School, where she was a senior, and had stayed over at her friend's place to avoid the early morning commute. As Bree walked into the living room of her family's historic home, she immediately sensed something was wrong. The room, usually spotless, was in disarray. A chair was knocked over, and there were papers scattered across the floor. Then her eyes fell on the most horrifying sight she had ever seen. Her father, Tom Princely, lying motionless on the floor near the fireplace. His head was covered in blood, and a heavy iron fireplace poker lay beside him, also stained with blood. Bree's heart raced as she froze in shock, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. After a few moments, she managed to pull out her phone and dial 911, her hands trembling as she tried to explain to the operator what had happened. The dispatcher, hearing the fear in Bree's voice, quickly sent emergency services to the scene. When the first responders arrived, Bree was standing outside the house, pale and shaking. She was in a state of shock, unable to speak coherently. The paramedics rushed inside, but quickly realized there was nothing they could do. Tom Princely was already dead. The scene was chaotic, with signs of a struggle, but it was the bloodied fireplace poker that told the story of how Tom had met his end. As Bree was gently guided into an ambulance for medical evaluation, the police began their investigation. The officers on the scene knew they were dealing with more than just a simple burglary gone wrong. The violence of the attack and the staged appearance of the crime scene immediately raised red flags. Bree's discovery of her father's body marked the beginning of a complex and shocking investigation that would soon uncover the dark secrets hidden within the Princely family. The Lexington Police Department arrived swiftly at the Princely residence after Bree's frantic 911 call. It was just after 8 a.m. on April 5, 2017, when officers pulled up to the stately historic home, nestled among the horse farms and tree-lined streets that characterize the affluent neighborhood. The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns, but the peaceful scene outside sharply contrasted with the horror that awaited inside. Detective Frank Mullins, a seasoned investigator with over 15 years on the force, led the team. Known for sharp instincts and meticulous attention to detail, Mullins had seen her share of crime scenes, but something about this one felt off. As she entered the living room, the first thing that struck her was the amount of blood. Tom Crinsley's body lay near the fireplace, his head caved in by the heavy iron poker that now lay discarded beside him. The room was in disarray, with overturned furniture and papers strewn across the floor, but Mullins noticed that some things didn't add up. The scene appeared to be a botched robbery, with a missing laptop and a few scattered bills suggesting a possible motive. However, Mullins's experience told her that the scene was too staged, too perfect in its chaos. The front door showed no signs of forced entry, and nothing of real value, such as the expensive antique clock on the mantel or the flat-screen TV, had been taken. It was as if the killer wanted the police to believe it was a simple home invasion gone wrong. As the forensic team began their work, Mullins directed them to dust for fingerprints and search for any other evidence that might have been overlooked in the apparent struggle. They used luminol to check for blood that might have been cleaned up, and sure enough, traces were found leading from the living room to the bathroom, indicating that the killer had attempted to wash away some of the evidence. The medical examiner arrived shortly after and confirmed what Mullins already suspected. Tom Crinsley had been killed by blunt force trauma to the head. The force of the blows suggested a great deal of anger or desperation. Mullins knew this wasn't the work of a random burglar. This was personal. As the investigation continued, Mullins's suspicions grew. The crime scene was too carefully crafted, and the brutality of the attack pointed to someone with a deep-seated motive. The detectives on the scene exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that the investigation was going to be anything but straightforward. The peaceful, upscale community of Lexington was about to be rocked by revelations that would expose the dark undercurrents lurking beneath its polished surface. Detectives turned their attention to Olive Crinsley, Tom's 40-year-old second wife, as their primary suspect in the murder of Tom Crinsley. Olive was a stay-at-home mother who had always been known for her polished appearance and social grace. She was often seen at local charity events and community gatherings in Lexington, Kentucky. However, beneath her composed exterior, Olive harbored deep insecurities and fears, particularly about her past. Raised in a poor household where food was not a constant, Olive had once worked as an exotic dancer, a fact she kept hidden because of the extremely strict and conservative values of the community she lived in. In Lexington, any hint of scandal could result in severe public backlash, including physical punishment such as whippings for perceived immoral behavior. Olive's fear of her secret being exposed was a significant factor in her life, but when Detective Frank Mullins first questioned Olive, she presented herself as a grieving widow. Her voice trembled as she recounted the events leading up to Tom's death. Olive claimed she had been upstairs sleeping off a bottle of Cabernet when the attack occurred, only discovering the scene when she heard Bree's shrill screams. Olive insisted she had no idea who could have done such a thing, repeatedly emphasizing how much she loved her husband and how shocked she was by his brutal murder. Despite Olive's seemingly genuine grief, Detective Mullins couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Olive's story was just a bit too rehearsed, and her tears seemed to appear on cue. When Mullins asked Olive about her relationship with Tom, Olive admitted they had their problems but insisted they were working through them. She described Tom as a distant husband, but said she had always supported him, even during the difficult times. However, as the police dug deeper, they began to uncover troubling details about Olive's life. A search of her phone records revealed frequent calls and sexually explicit text messages to Tom's 21-year-old son, Martin. The messages were more than flirtatious, and were at times explicitly sexual, detailing their liaisons in graphic detail, raising suspicions that Olive and Martin were more than just family. When confronted with this evidence, Olive's demeanor shifted. She became defensive, insisting that the messages were harmless and that she was simply trying to support Martin through a rough patch. But the police weren't convinced. Olive's growing resentment toward Tom, coupled with her inappropriate relationship with Martin, provided a possible motive for murder. As the investigation continued, Olive's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. The police started to view her not as a grieving widow, but as a prime suspect in Tom's murder. The more they learned about her, the more they believed that Olive was hiding something, and that her secret might be the key to solving the case. The second person the police turned their attention to was Martin Princely, Tom's 21-year-old son from his first marriage. Martin had recently moved back home after being expelled from Arizona State University for drunken behavior and making sexual threats toward female students. Despite his charm and good looks, which he had inherited from his father, Martin had a troubled history, perhaps influenced by his birth mother who was a drug dealer. He struggled with finding direction in his life, bouncing from one failed class to another, and had a reputation for getting into trouble. Martin's relationship with his father was strained, with Tom often expressing disappointment in his son's lack of ambition and direction. When Detective Frank Mullins sat down to question Martin, he was cocky and dismissive. He admitted to the police that he had a bleeping complicated relationship with his father, but denied any involvement in Tom's murder. Martin described his father as a strict and often distant figure who freely spanked his kids and had always put work before family. He claimed that Tom's death, while tragic, didn't come as a shock given the stress his father had been under, and suggested it was a suicide. However, Martin's attitude changed when the police brought up his relationship with Olive. Initially, Martin tried to downplay it, claiming that his moo-moo mommy Olive had been supportive during his many rough patches, and was the only mother he had as his birth mother was in prison. But as the questioning continued, it became clear that the relationship was far from some cutesy-inspiring thing. Martin eventually broke down and admitted that he and Olive had been involved in a sexual relationship for several months. He shrugged it off as a casual fling, claiming he was in it for the, quote, free sex, and insisted it was no big deal. Despite Martin's nonchalant attitude, the police saw his relationship with Olive as a potential motive. If Tom had discovered the affair, it could have led to a confrontation, giving Martin a reason to want his father out of the picture. However, Martin maintained that he had nothing to do with Tom's death, and that the affair was just a distraction from his otherwise aimless life. Detective Mullins noted Martin's lack of genuine emotion when discussing his father's death. His cavalier attitude and refusal to take responsibility for his actions only raised more red flags. But without solid evidence linking him directly to the crime, the police couldn't arrest him yet. Still, Martin remained a person of interest, especially given the growing tension between him and Olive, and the volatile nature of their secret affair. The investigation into Tom's murder was far from over, and Martin's role in the case was becoming increasingly murky. The third person the police questioned was Bree Princely, Tom's 18-year-old daughter and Martin's younger sister. Bree had been the one to discover her father's body, and her initial shock had quickly turned into suspicion. She was convinced that Martin had something to do with their father's death. Bree and Martin had never been close, and their relationship had grown even more strained in recent months. Bree was a sharp, independent young woman, set to graduate from high school in just a few months. She was planning to attend the University of Kentucky in the fall, where she intended to study psychology. Unlike her brother, Bree had always been focused and driven, with a clear sense of what she wanted from life. When Detective Frank Mullins interviewed Bree, she found her to be articulate and composed, despite the trauma she had just experienced. Bree was adamant that Martin was involved in their father's murder. She described how Martin had been acting strangely in the weeks leading up to Tom's death, frequently arguing with their father and spending more time at home than usual. Bree also mentioned the growing tension between Tom and Olive, though she hadn't been aware of the full extent of their marital problems. Bree's suspicions didn't stop at Martin. She also expressed concern about Olive's behavior, noting that her stepmother had seemed unusually calm in the aftermath of the murder. Bree described how Olive had taken control of the situation, calling the police and informing the neighbors before Bree had even processed what she had seen. To Bree, Olive's actions seemed too calculated, too rehearsed. As the investigation progressed, Bree's own relationship with Olive came under scrutiny. Olive had used her charm and manipulative tactics to exert control over Bree, creating quite the complicated situation. Despite being a victim in many ways, Bree was drawn into Olive's web of deceit. Eventually, Bree became involved in a brief sexual affair with Olive, a fact that came to light during her interviews with police. This relationship was part of Olive's broader attempt to manipulate those around her and maintain control before and after Tom's death. Bree's insights painted a troubling picture of the dynamics within the Princely household. The police began to consider the possibility that both Olive and Martin were involved in Tom's murder, perhaps working together to eliminate him. Bree's testimony added another layer of complexity to the case, suggesting that the murder was the result of a tangled web of family tensions and secret relationships. Despite her strong suspicions, Bree had no concrete evidence to prove Martin's or Olive's involvement. However, her observations provided the police with valuable leads, prompting them to dig deeper into the lives of both Martin and Olive. The investigation was becoming increasingly complicated, with Bree's testimony serving as a crucial piece of the puzzle. On the morning of April 18, 2017, the investigation into Tom Princely's murder took a crucial turn. The weather was unseasonably warm for early spring in Lexington, with clear skies and a light breeze. Detective Frank Mullins was back at the Princely residence, meticulously combing through the living room for anything the initial sweep might have missed. The case had stalled, with no solid evidence tying any of the suspects, Olive, Martin, or Bree, to the crime. But Mullins was determined to find the missing link. As she was about to call it a day, Mullins noticed something odd about the fireplace. The mantel was dusted clean, except for a small, almost imperceptible smear near the base. It was easy to overlook, but Mullins's keen eye caught it. She called in a forensic team to take a closer look. They carefully removed the fireplace poker, which had already been identified as the murder weapon, and began to dust the area for prints. What they found was a partial fingerprint, faint but legible, on the underside of the poker, something that had been missed in the initial investigation. The fingerprint was sent to the lab for analysis, and within hours they had a match. It wasn't Tom's, Olive's, or Martin's. It was Bree's. The discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation team. Bree had been vocal about her suspicions of Martin and Olive, but now the evidence pointed to her. This new piece of evidence forced the police to reevaluate Bree's involvement in the case. Could she have been more involved than she let on? Detective Mullins was hesitant to jump to conclusions. Bree's prints on the poker could have been left there innocently after all. She lived in the house and could have handled the poker at any time. But the timing was suspicious. Why would Bree's fingerprints be on the murder weapon, especially in such an unusual spot? Mullins's team decided to bring Bree in for another round of questioning. This time, they pressed her harder about her actions on the day of the murder. Bree maintained her innocence, insisting she had nothing to do with her father's death. But her story had small inconsistencies, and the new evidence made it impossible to completely rule her out. As the investigation continued, the police knew they needed more than just a partial fingerprint to build a case. But the discovery had cracked the investigation wide open. Now, with Bree under increased scrutiny, the detectives were more determined than ever to piece together the truth behind Tom Princely's murder. On April 19, 2017, the investigation into Tom Princely's murder took a decisive turn. After the discovery of Bree's fingerprints on the fireplace poker, the police focused their attention back on Olive Princely, Tom's wife. Despite Bree's prints on the murder weapon, something about Olive's demeanor during questioning had never sat right with Detective Frank Mullins. Olive had been too calm, too rehearsed. And then there was the strange relationship with Martin, Tom's 21-year-old son, that kept coming up in interviews. The breakthrough came when police obtained Olive's phone records, which revealed a series of deleted text messages between Olive and Martin in the days leading up to Tom's death. The messages were flirtatious and hinted at a deeper, more troubling relationship. One message from Olive, sent just 2 days before the murder, read, "Soon, it'll just be us, and we can finally be free." Another from Martin, responding, said, "I can't wait. He's in the way." These messages provided a clear motive. Olive wanted to be with Martin, and Tom was the obstacle in their path. The detectives confronted Olive with the evidence. It was April 20, 2017, a bright and sunny afternoon, when Olive was brought into the Lexington Police Department for what would be her final interrogation. The once composed and graceful Olive began to crack under pressure. She denied any involvement at first, but eventually started to unravel as the questioning intensified. Detective Mullins pushed Olive on the inconsistencies in her story and the damning text messages. Olive's calm facade broke, and she began to cry. In a moment of desperation, she confessed, "I couldn't stand it anymore. Tom was suffocating me. I needed to be with Martin. We were meant to be together." Olive admitted to planning Tom's murder, staging it to look like a robbery gone wrong, and even trying to manipulate Bree into taking the fall by planting her fingerprints on the poker. With her confession, the police had everything they needed. Olive Princely, 40 years old, was arrested on the spot for the murder of her husband, Tom. The news of her arrest shocked the community, especially those who knew the Princely family. Tom's children, Bree and Martin, were devastated, with Martin refusing to believe his stepmother could be capable of such a heinous act, despite the evidence. The case had come full circle, and justice was finally within reach. Olive's arrest marked the end of a twisted love triangle that had destroyed a family and left a community in shock. The trial of Olive Princely began on October 15, 2017 in Lexington, Kentucky. The case drew considerable media attention due to the shocking nature of the crime and Olive's seemingly perfect public image. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious locals, and Tom Princely's grieving family. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Helen Morgenstern, a 45-year-old attorney known for her dedication and clear, compelling arguments. Morgenstern outlined Olive's motive in her opening statement, focusing on Olive's secret affair with Tom's son Martin and her desire to be free from Tom's control. Morgenstern detailed how Olive had meticulously planned the murder, staging the crime scene to look like a botched robbery. She emphasized the chilling text messages between Olive and Martin, which revealed their intentions and desire to be together. In contrast, Olive's defense attorney was Robert Hughes, a 52-year-old lawyer known for his calm and methodical approach. Hughes argued that Olive's confession was coerced and that there was insufficient evidence to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. He painted Olive as a woman driven to extreme measures by an unhappy marriage and emotional turmoil. Hughes claimed Olive's confession was a result of the intense pressure from the police and her distressed state of mind. As the trial progressed, Tom's family watched with heavy hearts. Bree and Martin were visibly upset, struggling to come to terms with their stepmother's betrayal. Bree's face was often buried in her hands, while Martin appeared numb, still in disbelief that someone he had trusted could commit such a crime. On October 25, 2017, after several days of testimony and deliberations, the jury returned with a verdict. Olive Princely was found guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as Judge Richard Blake announced the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was met with mixed emotions. Some felt it was a just punishment for her crimes, while others believed it was too harsh. Tom's family was relieved that justice had been served but remained deeply affected by the loss. The verdict marked the end of a tragic chapter for the Princely family, and Olive's conviction served as a stark reminder of the devastating impact of unchecked desires and deceit. After Olive Princely's conviction, the lives of everyone involved were profoundly changed. The trial's end did not bring an easy resolution for the people affected by Tom Princely's murder. Olive Princely was transferred to the Kentucky State Penitentiary, a maximum security facility known for housing dangerous criminals. Her once glamorous life had come to a stark and unglamorous end. Olive faced the harsh reality of prison life, with its daily routines and stringent rules. She had lost everything she held dear: her freedom, her marriage, and her reputation. Olive's case continued to be a topic of immediate interest, with many newspapers and news stations covering her transition from a community figure to a convicted murderer. Martin Princely struggled to cope with the fallout from the trial, but 21-year-old was left with the painful realization that his actions and relationship with Olive had contributed to a tragedy. He was also dealing with the stigma of being associated with such a high-profile case. Martin tried to move on by seeking counseling and focusing on rebuilding his life, though the shadow of the scandal followed him wherever he went. Bree Princely, Tom's 18-year-old daughter, faced her own set of challenges. The ordeal had taken a toll on her emotionally and psychologically. She was determined to honor her father's memory and avoid letting the tragedy define her. Bree chose to focus on her education and career, hoping that moving forward with her life would help her find some peace. She found solace in speaking out about her experience, participating in local events and discussions to raise awareness about domestic violence and familial betrayal. The Princely family's case remained a sobering reminder of how personal relationships and hidden grievances could lead to devastating consequences. As the months passed, the community began to heal, but the memory of Tom Princely and the impact of Olive's crime lingered as a cautionary tale about the dark side of human nature. Connor Smith was a 21-year-old college student living in Sarasota, Florida, a city known for its population of rich cougars, snowbirds, and the dark underbelly of young people who served them in every way. He was passionate about cooking and dreamed of becoming a top chef. His friends often called him a foodie, and he loved to experiment with different recipes. Connor was a student at Sarasota State College of Florida, where he studied culinary arts. He had a part-time job as a food critic intern at the local newspaper, the Sarasota Herald Tribune. His reviews were already gaining attention for their snappy, biting style, often bashing Central Florida's love of chain restaurants. Connor was well-liked by his peers. He was known for his friendly personality and his ability to make everyone around him feel comfortable. He had a natural charisma that made him popular not just with his friends, but also with older women. He often attended Sarasota's high-end social events with them in exchange for sex. Connor was confident and adventurous, always looking for new lovers and experiences in life, love, and in the kitchen. In the days before his death, Connor was busy working on a new restaurant review. He was excited about the opportunity to visit one of Sarasota's most exclusive restaurants, Ophelia's on the Bay, a spot famous for its seafood and waterfront views. Connor's excitement was evident in his conversations with friends and colleagues. He was eager to make a name for himself in the world of food journalism and hoped this review would help him stand out. Connor's dreams were big. He wanted to travel the world, tasting different cuisines and learning from the best chefs. He often talked about moving to New York City one day to work in the Michelin-starred restaurant. But those dreams were cut short by a deadly plan that no one saw coming. On the morning of January 15, 2015, Sarasota was just starting to wake up to a clear, crisp day. Around 8 o'clock a.m., Connor Smith's roommate, Jordan Kim, noticed something was off. Connor hadn't left for his early morning shift at the Sarasota Herald-Tribune, which was unusual. Connor was always up before dawn, eager to get a head start on his day. Jordan knocked on Connor's bedroom door, but there was no response. Concerned, he decided to open the door. What he found inside was something that would haunt him forever. Connor was lying on his bed, motionless, with a pale complexion and no signs of life. The room, usually filled with the smell of whatever dish Connor had been perfecting, was now eerily quiet, smelling disturbingly of urine and feces. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken furniture, and no overturned belongings. It was as if Connor had simply gone to sleep and never woken up. Jordan's first reaction was shock. He stood frozen in the doorway, unable to process what he was seeing. Then panic set in. He rushed to his phone and dialed 911. His hands trembling as he tried to explain the situation to the dispatcher. His voice cracked with fear and confusion as he described how he had found his best friend unresponsive in bed. When the paramedics arrived, they quickly confirmed what Jordan already feared. Connor was dead. The police arrived shortly after, their flashing lights reflecting off the walls of the small apartment. The scene was surreal, the calm of the morning shattered by the reality of death. Jordan was in a state of shock. He couldn't believe what had just happened. The officers on the scene had to coax him out of the apartment so they could begin their investigation. He was later taken to the police station for questioning, where he was still visibly shaken, struggling to comprehend the loss of his friend. Connor's body was taken to the Sarasota County Medical Examiner's office for an autopsy, as the investigation into his mysterious death began. No one knew yet that this was just the beginning of a dark and twisted story. The Sarasota Police Department arrived at Connor Smith's apartment within minutes of receiving the 911 call on January 15, 2015. Leading the investigation was Detective Linda Perez-Sanchez, a seasoned officer known for her meticulous attention to detail. Perez-Sanchez had seen her share of crime scenes, but something about this one felt different. The quiet apartment, the untouched belongings, and the peaceful appearance of Connor's body all seemed to hint at a death that was anything but natural. As the officers entered Connor's bedroom, they immediately noticed the lack of any obvious signs of foul play. There was no blood, no weapons, and no indication of a struggle. Connor lay on his bed as if he had just drifted off to sleep. But as Detective Perez-Sanchez took a closer look, she began to suspect that something more sinister had occurred. Connor's pale skin and the faint, bluish tinge around his lips pointed to a possible poisoning. The crime scene was methodically photographed and documented. Every detail, from the neatly made bed to the half-empty glass of water on the nightstand, was carefully recorded. The police combed through the room, searching for any clues that might explain how a healthy, 21-year-old man could suddenly die. They dusted for fingerprints, collected samples from the water glass, and bagged several items from the kitchen, including a tray of leftover cannelloni that Connor had brought home from dinner the night before. The medical examiner, Dr. Karen Ong, arrived at the scene shortly after. She performed a preliminary examination and confirmed Detective Perez-Sanchez's suspicions. Connor's death appeared to be the result of poisoning. Dr. Ong ordered a full toxicology report to determine exactly what substance had caused Connor's untimely death. As the investigation continued, the police expanded their search to the entire apartment. They questioned Jordan Kim, Connor's roommate, who was still in shock but cooperated fully with the investigators. Jordan described Connor's recent activities, including his job at the Sarasota Herald-Tribune and his passion for cooking. He mentioned that Connor had been in good spirits the night before, excited about a new restaurant review he was working on. Detective Perez Sanchez knew that time was of the essence. If Connor had been poisoned, the person responsible might still be nearby, and the toxicology report would be crucial in identifying the exact cause of death. Bella Summers, 67, was the first person the police questioned in their investigation into Connor Smith's death. Bella was a well-known figure in Sarasota's social scene. She was glamorous, confident, and fiercely proud of her youthful appearance. As so-called cougar, Bella had a reputation for sexual relationships with much younger men, and Connor was one of them. Despite her age, Bella held on to her allure, using her charm to stay at the center of Sarasota's wealthy and older elite. Bella's past was as colorful as her present. She often reminisced about her days at Disney World, where she was one of the first girls to work there when it opened in 1971. Dressed as Cinderella, Bella entertained the park's first guests, a story she loved to share at social gatherings. Her tales of Disney magic kept her in the spotlight, but those who knew her well understood that these stories also masked a deep insecurity. Those days were long behind her, and Bella had spent thousands on cosmetic procedures and beauty treatments, all in an effort to keep age at bay. When police brought Bella in for questioning, she maintained her composure, calmly denying any involvement in Connor's death. She insisted that their relationship was a fun and mutually beneficial arrangement, and claimed to have had no reason to harm him. Bella described their last interaction, a dinner at her home just days before Connor's death, where she served her famous Nana's cannelloni, a dish she often used to reward her younger lovers for their sexual performance. Bella was cooperative, answering the detectives' questions with ease, and even offering to provide them with the recipe as if it were a harmless detail. But beneath her polished exterior, Detective Linda Perez Sanchez sensed something off. Bella's calm demeanor and willingness to share details seemed almost too perfect, as if she were playing a role she knew well. The detectives noted her behavior and the possible motive. Bella's obsessive need to control and retain her youth, even at the expense of those around her. The question lingered. How far would Bella go to keep her youth and her lovers close? Bella's obsession with retaining her youth and the way she spoke about Connor suggested a deeper, more complex relationship than she initially let on. The detectives couldn't ignore the possibility that Bella's insecurities and fears of losing control over her young lover might have driven her to do something drastic. As the investigation continued, Bella remained under close scrutiny, her carefully crafted image beginning to show cracks. The second suspect the police investigated was Ryan Blake Ross, a 22-year-old fitness trainer who worked at an exclusive gym frequented by Sarasota's elite. Ryan was well known for his good looks, charm, and his side gigs as both a drug dealer and gigolo. He was one of Bella Summers' many younger lovers, but his relationship with her had become increasingly complicated over time. Ryan had a reputation for being outgoing and friendly, but those close to him knew that he had a competitive streak and a tendency towards sexual jealousy. Ryan's connection to Connor Smith was tense. Both young men were sexual partners of Bella, and it was no secret that Ryan saw Connor as a rival. Connor's status as a college student and a gourmand with growing popularity among Sarasota's social circles only fueled Ryan's insecurities as a nearly illiterate college dropout. Ryan had sent Connor several threatening messages in the weeks leading up to Connor's death, warning him to stay away from Bella or else. These messages immediately caught the attention of the investigators. When the police brought Ryan in for questioning, he tried to maintain his usual confident demeanor, but it was clear he was on edge. Ryan, looking haggard compared to his buff social media pictures, denied having anything to do with Connor's death, claiming that his threats were just harmless stuff. He insisted that he had no real issues with Connor, and that their rivalry was more playful than serious. However, Detective Perez Sanchez noticed Ryan's agitation, particularly when asked about his whereabouts on the night of Connor's death. Ryan described his relationship with Bella as sexually intense, but stressed that he wasn't the only young people in her life. He spoke about Bella's many other lovers, including Chloe Hart, who was also one of his customers as a drug dealer, and how he sometimes felt overshadowed by them, especially after Bella sent them a spreadsheet ranking their sexual performance, which showed Connor and Chloe competing for first place and Ryan in fifth place. Ryan's jealousy and anger was evident, and the police began to see him as someone who might have acted out of fear of losing his position in Bella's life. The investigators pressed Ryan on his relationship with Connor, trying to get him to admit to a deeper motive, but Ryan stuck to his story, insisting he had nothing to do with the murder. Despite Ryan's denials, the police couldn't ignore the threats he had made. His jealousy and anger toward Connor, combined with his relationship with Bella, made him a strong suspect. As the investigation continued, the detectives kept a close eye on Ryan, trying to uncover more about his connection to the crime. The third suspect in the investigation was Chloe Hart, a 19-year-old with a complex and troubled past. Chloe had moved to Sarasota from Michigan to escape a life of drug addiction and quickly became involved in the city's flourishing adult film industry, working under the stage name Kara Bratwurst Lover. Despite her youth, Chloe was known for her seductive charm and her ability to manipulate situations to her advantage. She had become one of Bella Summer's many young lovers, viewing the older woman as a path to financial stability and a chance to distance herself from her drug habit and her work in the adult entertainment industry. Chloe's relationship with Bella was transactional in nature. Bella provided Chloe with gifts and financial support, while Chloe offered sex. However, Chloe was not content with just being one of many. She wanted to secure her place as Bella's one and only. This desire to stand out and reach first place in Bella's weekly spreadsheet made her fiercely competitive with Bella's other lovers, including Connor Smith and Ryan Blake Ross. When the police brought Chloe in for questioning, she appeared calm and cooperative, but her answers were carefully measured. Chloe claimed that her sexual relationship with Bella was purely for survival and that she had no reason to harm Connor. She admitted to knowing about the tension between Ryan and Connor, but denied having any involvement in their rivalry. Chloe painted herself as a victim of circumstance, trying to escape her past and build a better life in Sarasota. Detective Carey Sanchez, however, was not entirely convinced by Chloe's story. He noted that Chloe's responses were often vague, especially when asked about her interactions with Connor and Ryan in the days leading up to Connor's death. Chloe was quick to deflect questions about her own feelings toward Bella, focusing instead on how difficult her life had been before moving to Sarasota. Chloe's history of drug use and her involvement in the adult film industry made her a complicated figure in the investigation. The detectives were aware that Chloe had recently been diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, something she attributed to her drug habit. This information, combined with her relationship with Bella, added another layer of complexity to the case. While Chloe insisted that she had nothing to do with Connor's death, the investigators remained suspicious. Her motives, combined with her willingness to manipulate situations to her advantage, made her a person of interest. The detectives continued to dig deeper into Chloe's past and her connection to Bella, trying to determine if she played a role in the murder. The investigation took a shocking turn on January 28, 2015, when new evidence emerged that would reshape the entire case. It was a cool, crisp morning in Sarasota, with the sun just beginning to rise over the Gulf of Mexico. Detective Carey Sanchez and his team were combing through Bella Summer's lavish home, hoping to uncover anything that might link her or the other suspects to Connor Smith's death. What they found was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. In Bella's bedroom, hidden in the back of a locked drawer, detectives discovered a stack of medical records and personal journals. The records revealed that Bella had been living with HIV/AIDS for several years. But even more shocking were the entries in her journals, where Bella wrote how she had been deliberately giving her many young lovers the disease by making them have sex with her without protection. She described her twisted belief that by infecting them with HIV/AIDS, she could rob them of their youth, a twisted notion born from her deep insecurities about aging and envy towards those who were still young. Bella believed that by passing on the virus, she was somehow avenging her lost youth and punishing those she envied for their vitality and attractiveness. This revelation stunned the detectives. It provided a chilling new motive for Bella to murder Connor. If Connor had discovered Bella's plan and threatened to expose her, it would have given Bella a powerful reason to silence him permanently. The detectives immediately re-examined the timeline of events leading up to Connor's death, paying special attention to his interactions with Bella in the days before he was poisoned. The discovery of Bella's journals also shed new light on the other suspects. Ryan Blake Ross and Chloe Hart had both been romantically involved with Bella and must have been victims of her twisted scheme. The detectives considered the possibility that either Ryan or Chloe might have learned about Bella's plan and sought revenge, or that Bella, fearing exposure, had decided to eliminate anyone who might pose a threat to her. Armed with this new evidence, the investigators intensified their focus on Bella Summers. They began building a case that linked her not only to Connor's murder, but also to a broader pattern of deceit and manipulation. The medical records and journals were sent for further analysis, and the detectives prepared to confront Bella with the horrifying truth they had uncovered. As the investigation continued, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, bringing the detectives closer to solving the case and revealing the dark secrets that had led to Connor Smith's tragic death. On January 30, 2015, just 2 days after uncovering the damning evidence in Bella Summers' home, the Sarasota police made their move. The team, led by Detective Carey Sanchez, arrived at Bella's residence in the early afternoon. The sky was clear, and the winter sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of her upscale neighborhood. Bella was at home, preparing for one of her famous dinner parties, when the detectives knocked on her door. Bella, dressed in an elegant robe and with her hair perfectly styled, answered the door with her usual confident smile. But that smile quickly faded when Detective Carey Sanchez informed her that she was under arrest for the murder of Connor Smith. Bella's reaction was a mix of shock and defiance. She demanded to know what evidence they had against her, maintaining her innocence even as she was handcuffed and led away. As she was escorted to the police car, Bella began loudly reciting the slogan from the soap opera Days of Our Lives. Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives, in what seemed to be an attempt to feign insanity. The arrest of Bella Summers sent shockwaves through Sarasota's social circles. Known for her glamorous lifestyle and youthful companions, Bella's involvement in such a shocking and heinous crime was almost impossible for many to believe. But as the details of the case began to emerge, it became clear that the charming exterior Bella had hid a much darker reality. Detective Carey Sanchez and the team had built a strong case against Bella. The medical records and journals they found in her home provided clear evidence of her twisted plan to infect her young lovers with HIV/AIDS. They also uncovered a series of text messages between Bella and Connor in which he confronted her about her actions. It was clear from these messages that Connor had threatened to expose Bella, leading her to take drastic measures to protect her secret. As Bella sat in the interrogation room, she remained composed, denying any involvement in Connor's death. But the evidence was overwhelming, and her attempts to cast doubt on the investigation were in vain. Connor's family, devastated by the loss, expressed relief that justice was finally being served. They described Connor as a bright young man with a promising future and couldn't comprehend how someone like Bella could be responsible for his death. Bella's arrest marked a turning point in the investigation. The once confident socialite now faced the reality of her actions, and the Sarasota community watched in disbelief as the case unfolded in the media. Bella Summers' trial began in late March 2015. The prosecution was led by Assistant State Attorney Michael Dunbar, a seasoned 48-year-old with a reputation for being relentless in the courtroom. Dunbar was determined to secure a conviction, painting Bella as a manipulative woman who used her charm to lure in young men and then poisoned them to maintain her twisted sense of youth. Dunbar presented the jury with the evidence found in Bella's home, the medical records, journals, and text messages that clearly showed her malicious intent. He argued that Bella, fearing Connor Smith would expose her secret, decided to kill him by lacing his favorite dish, Nana's cannelloni, with rat poison. The slow, agonizing death Connor suffered was a testament to Bella's cruelty, Dunbar emphasized. Bella's defense attorney, Sharon McAllister, a 39-year-old with a calm demeanor and a sharp legal mind, argued that Bella was being unfairly targeted due to her age and unconventional relationships. McAllister tried to portray Bella as a victim of societal expectations and a woman who had made poor choices but was not a murderer. She claimed that the evidence was circumstantial and that the prosecution had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Bella had poisoned Connor. McAllister also suggested that Connor's death could have been an accident or the result of someone else's actions, casting suspicion on Bella's other lovers, Ryan Blake Ross and Chloe Hart. Throughout the trial, Connor's family watched with heavy hearts. His mother, Susan Smith, often fought back tears as she listened to the graphic details of her son's death. The emotional toll on the family was evident, and they sought justice for the bright young man who had been taken from them too soon. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 6 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. Bella Summers was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge's sentence was seen as a victory for the prosecution and a small measure of justice for Connor's grieving family. The verdict brought some closure to the Smith family, but the pain of losing Connor would never fully heal. For Bella Summers, the once glamorous socialite, the rest of her life would be spent behind bars, far from the luxury and youth she so desperately tried to hold on to. After the trial, the lives of those involved in the case changed dramatically. Bella Summers, once a glamorous figure in Sarasota's high society, began serving her life sentence in Florida's Lowell Correctional Institution. The prison's stark environment was a far cry from the luxury Bella had once known. Stripped of her wealth and status, she quickly became just another inmate, her obsession with youth now a distant memory as she faced the reality of growing old behind bars. Ram Blake Ross, who had been under suspicion during the investigation, distanced himself from Sarasota's social scene after the trial. The attention he had once enjoyed from older women now brought him unwanted notoriety. Ryan eventually left Florida, moving to California, where he tried to start fresh as a personal trainer in Los Angeles. However, the stigma of his association with Bella Summers and the murder case followed him, making it difficult for him to truly escape his past. Chloe Hart, who had also been a suspect, faced her own challenges. With her reputation tarnished by the trial, she could no longer find work in Sarasota's adult film industry. Flo decided to leave the industry altogether, focusing on overcoming her drug addiction and trying to live a more stable life. She moved back to her hometown in Michigan, where she sought support from her family and local rehabilitation programs. In the years following the trial, Sarasota moved on, but the memory of the shocking crime lingered. It served as a cautionary tale about the dark side of obsession and the lengths to which some would go to cling to their youth.